on the basis of something else, we first need to be justified in believing the something else, and we need to be justified in believing that the something else makes the first thing probable.
Do you now?
No, I disagree with that. In the fact that God, when He created the human nature was inherently good, but due to man's choice, it fell, which causes these 2-year-olds to do these things out of the fallen nature of the humanity.
Could you summarize back to me what the principle that I just described, or
Yeah,
did it go
you just
completely over your
explained
head?
no, because you just explained. You just said that it originally comes from the first thing, which would be in the premise. It would be God. So, in what I'm presenting is that the
Bro did
human
not
nature.
track the
That's
justification
dude. That's
principle
literally
at
what you
all.
said.
That's not.
No,
I don't.
what I explained is that we're justified in believing a proposition on the basis of another proposition only if
Oh yeah,
we're
my fault.
justified in
I
believing the second
misrepresented you. That's my
proposition,
fault.
and we're justified in believing that it makes it probable.
Yeah, so like, how would that even go with the equation that I gave when I explained to you about your how I what's it called when about refuting your reductio? Like, how does that even relate?
Because you were talking about your foundation, which of course like brings us back to coherentism, so I'm just giving you the reductios to coherentism. Or actually, it's not even a reductio to coherentism, it's just a proof of foundationalism.
Yeah, I just disagree with foundationalism.
So you reject that in order to be
Dude,
justified
I'm
in believing
epistemicologist,
something
bro. I'm not
that you need to be
foundationalist.
based on some wait, so your beliefs aren't based on anything?
No, I don't, bro. Foundationalism comes off of self-evidency, bro. I don't affirm that self-evident truths can get you to second order knowledge.
Wait, but so you have beliefs that aren't based on anything, is that correct?
That's not what I said.
But wait, so I just want to know, do you have beliefs that aren't based on anything?
Yeah, again, that's not what I said. Like
I'm
you're
asking,
inserting
it's a
something.
question.
Dude. You're
It's a
arguing for
question.
something.
I'm
You're red
asking
herring,
you.
bro. I'm not arguing for something like that.
I'm not a red herring, I'm Ian. Do you believe that, yes or no?
That's so
Bro,
freaking
that was
funny.
lame as hell, bro. You corny as hell,
I'm quirky as fuck.
Y'all aren't listening to each other. Y'all are just talking
bro.
over each other.
Bro,
Bro,
this dude
that's what
just
you get with
keeps
a
red herring
presuppositionalist,
me.
right?
I'm not,
Like
dude.
all a presuppositionalist
Wait,
does is get really aggressive and then
a
embarrass
presupp, dude. It would
themselves.
don't, dude. That would only be bad if I didn't
Are
have a
you
justification for
presupposing
my
that, Ian?
presupposition.
Yeah, wait, so what's God's justification for knowledge?
What?
He did. Oh no, you've never thought about this. You're gonna get cooked.
What are you talking about?
What's God's justification for knowledge? What justifies God's knowledge?
God's knowledge isn't propositional. It just is
So
the
does God
energy
know
of
the
knowledge.
proposition? Does God know the
No,
proposition
I
that two
reject
plus
that
two
God.
equals? God doesn't know
I
that
do.
two plus two equals
Hold on.
four. Then
Bro,
God's
you
not all
can't even let
knowing.
me finish, bro.
Yeah. Well, you said enough. God doesn't know that two plus two
What
equals
are you
four.
talking? Are you this dishonest, bro? Did I even get a
Is two
chance
plus
to
two
finish what I
equals
was saying?
four? Is two plus two equals four a proposition?
No, bro. A proposition will be either a false dichotomy or a true dichotomy. God knows all truth claims. He does not know propositions in
Do
the
you know
way
what the
that,
definition of proposition is?
bro. A proposition would be either a question that could be true or false.
Well, it's a statement that can either be true or false.
Yeah, bro, that's what I said.
What is
You're
truth,
being a
Ian?
sophist,
You said a question. A question is not the same thing as a statement. Come on.
Know what he
bro.
means, bro.
You
You
know what I
believe truth
mean, bro. You're
exists?
I
being a
don't know what you mean.
sophist.
Be more precise with your language.
You are,
Does truth
bro.
exist, Ian?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think truth exists, but that's kind of getting off the point.
How do you know?
I wanna make sure that
do you know?
we've drilled in deeply on this guy. Does God know that two plus two equals four tempo?
Hey, Mozzie, you can tag in, bro. This dude's being such a sophist, bro. I cannot
bro
deal with your sophistry, bro.
yeah,
You are a
tag out
sophist, bro.
scumbag. This was easy.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, like get a real
I
argument. Look into fine tuning. Presuppositionalism is only going to get you embarrassed.
yeah. Can you? I don't think you did what you thought you did. Anyways,
Could you summarize what I
you?
did and where I went wrong, or were you not listening? Did you just want to come in with like the big opener?
I know where you went wrong because essentially you were trying to prove that God has propositional knowledge, and he was trying to give you an answer that God doesn't have propositional knowledge, but you just wanted to focus on semantics and his use of the word question rather than a statement instead of just following the argument and progressing.
Okay, cool.
So you just came here to argue.
Does
So
God
I know
know
what
that
you were
two
wrong
plus two
about.
equals four?
Yes, but I want to argue a little bit
Oh,
differently.
and is two
here,
plus two
Ian.
equals four a proposition?
Yeah, I want to argue. I want to
Is
argue a
two
little
plus
bit
two equals
different-
four a proposition?
Ian, I want to argue
Is
a
two
little
plus
bit
two equals four a
differently here.
proposition?
Yeah, hold on. I came
Is it
to
a
talk to you not
proposition?
about. I came up here to talk to you, not about.
Wait, do you want to
proposition
concede that
of-
Tempo's argument is
Hold
dog
on.
shit? That this
Hold on.
stance is completely indefensible?
Ian, I came up here not to defend Tempo's argument. I came here to take a different point of view. So
Wait,
that's why he tagged me.
okay, as
in.
long as we agree that
So-
Tempo's argument is like complete garbage and that he like humiliated
I don't
himself,
care about
that's
what
fine.
you and Tempo were
Yeah,
talking
that's fine.
about.
Yeah,
So
okay.
Ian, do you
I'm
have a
fine moving
coherent
off of it as long as we
Ian,
can, we can agree that Tempo like shat the
do you
bed.
have a
Sure.
coherent argument against the resurrection?
Against the resurrection?
Yeah.
Sure, it's just going to be that God isn't real. Therefore,
how do-
supernatural events, divine events specifically, also aren't real.
Can you give me can you give me evidence that God is not real?
Yeah, I'll just give you the same argument. Premise one: if God is perfect and He designed us, then necessarily the design does not have design flaws. Premise two: the design does have design flaws. Conclusion: a perfect God did not design us.
What does it mean
Doesn't
to be?
follow from
what-
causality.
Yeah, I don't understand. Yeah,
The inference rule is modus
So first of all,
ponens.
yeah. So if your premise one is that
That
God
would
is
only make it
perfect.
possible. That would only make it possible. It wouldn't
No, that would make it.
necessary.
That would make it sound. Or no, that would make it
No.
valid.
The parameters of the cause must be outside of the parameters of effect. It means that God would have the quality or the ability to give us this perfection. It could mean that we either had it at one point or lost it, or it could mean that he just didn't design us that way, or with that intention or that purpose or that specific time, or for it to be expressed. So a number of possibilities can be true from that. So it doesn't necessitate from the premises you laid out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's one of two things that's going to be true. Either God intended for this design to cause like a horrible disease that makes 2-year-olds gouge their own eyes out, or God did not intend for it. If he intended for it, then he's a moral monster, and we would reject him just on the
What's a
contradiction that
moral
God
monster? What's a moral monster?
is. Yeah, just someone who's like deeply unempathetic.
Okay, and that would make them what, like a monster? I'm assuming a monster is some indication of something that is awful.
Yeah, it'd be like morally horrific, like probably like
what
the
do you mean
least
by-
moral
what do you mean by
creature in the
morally
entire
horrific?
universe.
Hold
perhaps.
on. Why would this be so?
Because empathy is going to be grounded, or is going to be the ground of all morality, and making 2-year-olds gouge their own eyes out is
Why is
probably like the
empathy the
least.
ground of all morality?
Yeah, it's because empathy is presupposed in all logical statements. Because in
You're
all
presupposing?
no, it's just
You're-
going to be
you're
like
presupposing?
it's a transcendent value. It's not just like I presuppose empathy, therefore empathy. It's in order to engage in a dialogue in the first place, you need to be trying to see things from the other person's point of view if you're attempting to be logical.
Oh, you're talking
If you're
about
attempting to
internal
see it
critique?
from the other person's point of view, then necessarily you're engaging in empathy.
is
Therefore,
empathy-
in order to make any moral claims at all, you must necessarily have already presupposed empathy as the precondition for the discussion.
Is empathy necessary for all moral claims?
Oh, so
Yeah,
you're saying
yes,
that your
empathy is
act-
necessary for all moral claims. Yes, correct.
Okay. So if two
Okay,
psychopaths
and-
that lack empathy are talking, they cannot discuss in terms of morality what is good. What they
Oh,
ought
yeah,
to
that's
do and
correct.
what
They couldn't
ought
make
not to
logical
do.
moral claims. Yeah, that's correct.
So two psychopaths can't have moral claims. Okay.
They can't make logical moral claims.
So
They can express their interests. They can express their like wants or their desires, but they can't engage in
But they can't-
in an
but they can't
optimally
think of what-
logical moral
yeah, but they
conversation.
can't think about what is good and what is bad.
Yeah, they can like state their preferences, but they can't make
So can you
logical moral
provide-
claims.
Can you provide any medical evidence that psychopaths can't think in terms of good and bad?
So the claim that I'm specifically making is that they can't express empathy, and that empathy is the necessary precondition for morality.
Okay.
Yet
So
they're
let's say
able
I have-
a psychopath would be able to engage in dialogue, though. So wouldn't that mean that they're empathetic?
So
or
they can
predisposed?
express their like preferences, they can express their interests, but if they lack empathy, then they're not actually capable of making logical moral claims that take an interest in other people's interests.
So if I had a conversation with a psychopath and they're able to consider my point of view, this still
Then
would
they'd be using empathy.
presuppose- Well, okay, so then you're saying that if they did that, then they would have empathy?
So if they attempt to see it from your point of view, that's empathy. Then they would be using empathy. And if they don't do that,
Okay,
then
and-
their claims aren't logical.
And how would you know that they'd be attempting to see it from your point of view?
Wait, so do we acknowledge that we've just pivoted away from the meta-ethics to an epistemology claim?
Well, I mean, it's not really a pivot. I was actually trying to get down on this dialogue before, and then he kind of jumped in because we were talking about you said God would be a moral monster, and then you started talking
Yeah.
about empathy, right? And so I said, so how would you know that he would be a monster or be immoral or something like that, right? And so you're saying the basis for morals is empathy, right? And then empathy would just be what? The consideration for
Oh
others?
no,
Or
this
what?
is the presuppositionalist who ran from me in like 3 minutes. Oh, I don't know why you'd bring this metaphysics person up. That's fine.
Huh?
This is the guy who said that I needed to present a logical syllogism for it.
Yeah, you need to present an argument.
But he
Can
doesn't
y'all
know
get
what-
on with the argument?
He doesn't
I
know what a
don't care about
Socratic
this.
teaching is. Go pick up a book.
He doesn't know what an argument is. It's like I don't know how to engage with someone who doesn't know what an argument is.
Can you go on with what
Name
you
3
were
books
talking
you've
about?
read. Name 3 books you've read, though.
Wait, you want wait. Name 3 books? How about I just show you my fucking bookshelf, big dog?
All right, bro. You don't even know what the Socratic method is, though. That's
What you want to?
You consume
Yo,
no
Drew,
knowledge
I
out
can't
of
believe
those
you'd want to
books.
get like flexed on like this. Like seriously, like why do you think
Alright,
that this
I
would
can
be like
show you
a
my
like a
bookshelf
good
too,
move for
now
you? Like genuinely, like what the fuck did you think was going to happen?
Hey, all those books, and you couldn't even present to me what you thought an argument was. It's crazy,
Bro, and it's like there's like even more of them too. Like what the
I can
fuck?
show you
What do
my
what, name
bookshelf,
name
too.
3
I don't think
books.
this is
Name
gonna be
3 people who
productive,
like you. What the?
I can show you
I
my
don't give a
bookshelf too
care
now.
about none
Like,
of that. Get back to the argumentation. I don't care about none
this
of
guy
that.
just flexed his bookshelf. Fucking nerd.
Yeah, you asked me to read
Yeah.
3 books or to name 3 books that I've read.
Okay, can you go on with your
And you
argument? Because I can
consume
care
no
less.
knowledge out of all those books.
Yeah.
It's
Anyways,
crazy,
yeah. So
Bro,
if you're
I've
saying that,
read more books about epistemology than you've read.
Can you shut? Continue on with the
Yeah,
argumentation. Either
I-
Tony or
it is-
Mazi, either one.
That's hilarious.
yeah,
Okay,
it
so
just
I'll
sounds like
just-
two. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, man. Go ahead. I guess this is.
I was just saying. I was just going to say that between Ian and Rev, it just sounds like 2 people measuring how much they know. It doesn't help the conversation.
Yeah, I'm very good at that.
So since you said that empathy is a necessary precondition for morality, is empathy objective?
What do you mean by objective?
Does it hold in all cases? Is it the same in all cases? So, for example, let's say my empathy towards you or someone else's empathy towards you would be the same.
So wait, are
Would
you?
it be stance independent?
Well,
I mean, that's kind of like a weird question, right? Because empathy is just like a practice that people engage in. Our practice is stance independent. I'm not. It kind of. I guess my intuition is
No,
telling me.
but I'm
this is
saying
a
if you're saying
category
that
error.
if when we're talking about necessary grounds, we're talking about things that could not be other, correct?
Well, so it's a necessary condition in order to make logical moral claims. If you don't
then
have
what do you
empathy,
mean by
you
necessary?
can't make logical moral claims.
Yeah, so it could not be other, right? There could not be another emotion that
How
takes
does
over,
that
like
follow?
empathy.
I mean, I explained the argument. I can explain it again if you want.
No. I was asking. Look, how does that follow?
Yeah,
Yeah.
You don't have empathy. You can't make logical arguments. Can you explain how that follows?
Yeah. So do you want me to re-explain the argument I've already explained? I'll explain it to you a second time. That's fine.
No, it's not the argument. You said that if
You asked how
somebody
does it
doesn't have
follow?
empathy, they can't
Yeah, exactly.
make logical arguments. So no empathy equals no logic. So explain how you got from no empathy to no logic.
No
How you make
logical
that connection.
moral, specifically no logical moral claims. That you
Okay, so
you're not capable of
specifying-
engaging in a
you're
logical
specifying
moral
morals, then.
dialogue.
Yeah, when you're dealing
Okay,
with
so you're
logic,
specifying that not necessarily logic. It just means that you're saying they wouldn't be logically moral.
That their moral
What you're saying,
claims
is
couldn't
that
be
right?
based on a logical process.
yeah, he's conflating logics and morals, but okay.
I don't think you know what that means.
Well,
Yeah, so what you're doing is you're saying you're trying to make a logical stance from an empathetic stance, which doesn't really make sense, but okay.
No, I'm just saying that in order
That's what you
to
said.
arrive logically, in order to have valid inferences about morality, necessarily you need to be presupposing empathy.
Yeah, substantiate that.
okay.
Yeah, wait, I'm more than happy
That
to.
makes
I'll just
that
pull
makes
up the,
no sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, let me-
it
I was
really it
gonna-
doesn't, but let's hear him out. We didn't hear.
That's what I'm
Like,
trying to
do
get
you-
him to
do you
reveal,
really
but
think-
he can't really
Do you
do it.
really
Yeah.
think?
Wait,
Sorry.
can I reveal it? Do I
Yeah,
have the opportunity?
yeah.
no
of course,
problem.
Of course.
Yep.
Of course.
All right. Premise 1, if you're making rational moral claims, then you're submitting them to rational universal testing. Premise 2, if you're submitting them to rational universal testing, then you're engaging in a rational discourse. Premise 3, if you're engaging in a rational discourse, then you're taking the rational appeals of the other as your unconditional starting point in moral discourse. If you're taking premise 4, if you're taking the rational appeals of the other as your starting point in a moral discourse, then you're attempting to see it from the other's perspective.
You're reading
Premise
from a
5,
script.
if you're, can I finish the argument?
Yeah.
You can like
Sure.
fumble over your words and not reject a premise in just a second. Let me at least get the premises out
Yeah.
before you're incapable of rejecting a single one of them.
I can literally hear that page
He's not
as
done, he's
you
not done.
pulled it up to read it.
Well, yeah, it's like it's my own document
He's
that I
not done,
literally
he's not
typed
done.
up myself. Like, wait, it's literally like a Google Doc. That is mine. I can just like show it to you. This is my Google Doc.
Yeah. No, you're good,
that
bro. You're
I
good.
wrote.
You're good.
It's titled the
Yeah, continue,
Precept
bro. You're
Brutalizer
good.
Project.
We get it, bro.
Yeah,
Sorry for cutting
it's-
you off. Continue.
Yeah, cool.
Damn, bro.
Premise 5, if you're attempting to see it from the other's perspective, then you're using empathy. Which premise do you reject?
Oh, can you define empathy?
Yeah, empathy is when you attempt to see things from another person's perspective.
Would that involve emotions?
I mean, I
Not
wouldn't-
necessarily.
I wouldn't
Okay.
really.
Then I
define
accept.
that
I
empathy,
accept
but
that.
that's
Then
alright.
I accept
Hold on,
that.
hold on.
Yeah.
Empathy encompasses both the capacity to sense others' emotions and the ability to respond to their experience.
Yeah. So we'll just
Yeah.
use his semantics. Ian, I get you, bro. We'll use your semantics and say that empathy doesn't involve emotions, even though colloquially is incorrect. We'll use your semantics though.
Can we just get to the substance of what you guys was even talking? Because I think this point is quite irrelevant.
Yeah, so so they asked me they did like the classic bad like precept pivot where you ask the atheist like, what's your morality? And then unfortunately I have like an objective standard for morality.
Yeah.
So,
He presupposed,
yeah,
that
you'll
he presupposed
substantiate that,
empathy
right?
and that God was a monster. So it's funny how he's, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see how you're
Stuff.
gonna ground your objective morals in your worldview. We can see that.
I just did.
Yeah. No, you didn't.
So the conclusion, the first conditional, if you're making rational moral claims, then you're submitting them to rational universal testing. The last one, if you're attempting to see it from the other's perspective, then you're using empathy. So if you are making rational moral claims, then you are using empathy. That's what the argument is an argument for.
Yeah. How's that objective?
I just gave you the argument.
Yeah, just because you gave.
Do you want to? Do you need it a second
no,
time?
Hold on. Let me
There's-
finish. Right. Let me finish. Right. I'll let you finish. Right.
Yep.
So, when you're talking about you and empathy, right? You're looking at two people's perspectives. The other person's perspective doesn't automatically conclude that it's already going to be objective. You're only presupposing that the stance that you're taking and looking at the other's perspective, right, is going to be always true, right? So you got to substantiate why it's true, right?
No, so
looking at it from an empathetic standpoint, right, you got to substantiate its substance that it's actually objective.
So the argument is not that when you attempt to see it from another person's perspective, that the other person's perspective is like always true 100% of the time. So the morality that this gets you specifically is called an ethic of care. It's like pioneered in feminist ethics specifically. And what it states is that the morally correct thing to do is going to be the empathetic thing to do. That's what this is an argument for. It's not an argument saying that like whatever the other person thinks is like always automatically correct. It's
Okay.
just that you have presupposed specific. So, okay, I guess maybe you could think about it like this. We decide to settle our disagreements by like discussing them, by like
Right.
debating them. We could have
Right.
settled our disagreements by like bashing each other's heads in with like rocks or whatever.
Okay.
So in order to engage in a conversation, we have specific goals and specific like norms that are necessary to achieve those goals.
Right.
And the argument is essentially saying that one of those norms, or so like one of the goals of a conversation is to come, of a moral dialogue is to come to one that takes an interest in everyone's interest. That's
Right.
just going to be like a goal across all moral dialogues. One of the norms that is effective to reaching that end is empathy. That we can we can most effectively take an interest in other people's interests if and only if we are being empathetic.
So you're presupposing people's interest.
No, people have a wide variety of interests,
Well,
and
that's the
your
thing.
job as a logical participant is to try to understand them.
Okay, so the only problem with that is, again, right, when you're talking about people's interests and what were necessary to do, right, you're already presupposing that there's necessities in the interest, right? So when we're talking about, instead of bashing your head in and talking, right, you're going to have to actually substantiate why we should, and because what you did was presupposing just conversation. You're going to have to actually substantiate why conversation is more effective in talking in norms than it is in bashing someone's head in, right?
So the way that I arrive at this is twofold. So either we engage in a conversation or we do not engage in a conversation. If we do not engage in a conversation, then the claim is self-defeating, because right now, we, this very second, are engaging in a conversation. In order to make the claim that you will not engage in a conversation, it requires you to make a claim which requires you to engage in a conversation. This argument for ethics of care is transcendental. To reject it is self-defeating.
Okay.
Same thing, literally, about God.
So why would it be self-defeating to
Literally
reject
say
God?
that in you trying to deny God, right? You deny truth.
Well, I
because
want to.
in trying to deny God, you'd have to deny that truth exists, and in denying truth exists, you'd
I
have to
don't
deny
deny that.
your own existence as well, and the
Well,
meaning and the unity states that would comprise.
Oh,
Okay, so there is such a thing as truth, correct?
Yeah, I agree. There's such a thing as truth, yeah.
okay.
okay. So, I mean, I
Let
didn't
me.
really get the answer to my question, but I'll let you guys finish.
I didn't want to give. I don't really give moral arguments for God. I'd rather give like a metaphysical
I
argument.
love metaphysical
but I don't-
arguments.
So what do you say?
I love metaphysical arguments.
Yeah, but I don't know if because I don't want to be rude.
Okay.
But I don't know if you guys are done with your argument. I mean,
It's crazy.
Well, I mean-
So did Ian just prove their objective morality?
No.
Yeah, I think so, but I don't know.
Yeah, he said, I think so. It's not really objective, that's subjective.
He can't.
Well, you can think
yeah,
so, and
yeah,
then
he
also it
really
can be
ain't
true.
grounded.
Like I think 2 plus
That's
2
true,
equals
that's true.
4.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so
Yeah,
again, what is
okay.
truth?
But,
What is truth? Can you define? Can you tell me?
Like
what
it's
truth
really people are saying it's really late.
I feel like there's a lot of people talking about it.
Okay.
In my opinion, we should have like just one person who he wants to talk to. I don't know if he was already talking to
Yeah.
someone else.
No, let
jumping
it just
on
be
it.
Veritas because I think it's late
Yeah,
where he
this-
is.
I think Mazi, you should get him. You should have a conversation with him.
Yeah, I'm fine talking to
I would
whoever.
have a conversation with him about the resurrection, but like Veritas, what time is this? It's 4 a.m. for Veritas, so bro.
yeah, it's 4 a.m. for me. I was about.
Love metaphysics. Which argument do you think is the best for God's
Okay,
existence?
have you read the first argument from the Blessed Saint Thomas Aquinas?
Is that the one from Motion, or is that a different one?
Yeah, yes, the argument from motion.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
I don't have it syntactic, like I don't have the syntax in my head, but it's basically something like, well, premise one, everything that exists is in motion, or everything that exists is either moved, unmoved, or is moved by another. Contingent things, right? So the finite beings are moved by another. So the conclusion is that this chain of finite beings must be moved by an infinite being, which is unmoved. And we could just go off like which premise you disagree, and I can defend.
So, okay, I guess because I was recently reading a book called, I think it's titled like Divine Intervention. I forget the author. So I have like an argument on deck about like act potency stuff. So would you draw like an act potency like that? Would you say like this like infinite unmoved mover is like pure act, or does this not like applicable? Okay. If God is pure act and like no potency, then how can God be omnipotent? Like where are the powers that are not within like the pure act?
Because within the scholastic tradition, God still has causal power and God still has active potency or active potentia. The active potentia does not. The only reason why we emphasize that God is pure act is because potency as a principle divides being and limits being. Whereas because God is purely actual and perfect and free from all imperfections, he doesn't have the principle of limitation, which comes from potency, but he has the capacity to do great things, but he doesn't have any capacity that limits his being. That's the point.
So I suppose I would take, when we say that someone has like the power to do something, I typically take this as something like they have the potency to do it, or there's like a possible world where they do it. I guess, would you agree with any of those like semantics of power?
That someone has the potency to do something?
Or I guess like, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you say that power, by power, you're signifying the causal efficacy of someone being able to do something because of their intrinsic principles, then obviously I'd agree. Because, for example, I have the power to speak English, and the only reason why I have the power to speak English is because of my human nature, which is constituted by intrinsic principles that other beings do not have, like a table, a house, or a chair. And so that would be a power in that sense. And this
That's
wouldn't limit
interesting.
my being. Yeah.
Okay. Does God have the power to do things that he is not going to do?
He has the power to do things that he wills not to do. If that's what you mean.
Yeah, right. Like, so maybe in like all of God's existence and like the history of the universe, God will never make like a goose that has like two heads, for example. But maybe he has like the power to. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I suppose I can go with that example.
Okay. I think that this trades off with the act potency distinction. I don't think it makes sense to talk about him having like the potency to do a thing that he is never going to do, like a thing that in no possible world he does.
Sorry, what? How does this go against the act potency distinction?
So, just that if God has like no potency, if he's pure act, no potency, then I'm not sure how he is omnipotent in regards to the things that he never acts.
Because obviously, like, I can have the power of speaking English. That doesn't mean I have to speak English every single time. I also speak my tribal language. Does that mean that when I speak my tribal language or when I speak Spanish, does that mean that I can't speak English? Obviously not, because the power still resides in my intrinsic mode.
But that's because you have like the potency to do so.
Not just not the passive potency to do so, the active potency to do so. Not the type of potency that limits my being. I'm saying that God has active potency, has the active capacity to generate change in any being, but he doesn't have the capacity of himself changing, which is the main thing in question.
Okay, wait. Would you agree that in order to have the power to do something, there needs to be a possible world where you do that thing?
Yeah. If by
Okay.
possible world, you just mean like a formal conception.
Okay. And if God is like a purely necessary being and he never creates like a goose with two heads, there's like no possible world where he creates a goose with two heads, then the condition for having the power to create a goose with two heads would not be met.
That's just a negative inference fallacy. Can you justify the inference that because God has willed not to make something in this particular world, he doesn't have the power to do that thing? Like,
Yeah.
how do you
So
actually
yeah, I'll
say
give you a
that?
syllogism. So if you have the power to do X, then there must exist
What?
a possible world where you do X. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, if you have the power to do X, then I don't even like the whole possible world semantics, but yeah, there would be a possible world in which you could do X. I can grant you that.
Okay. There is no possible world where God creates a goose with two heads.
Why?
Oh, okay. I guess like where he creates like a goose with two heads could be substituted for like anything that he's never going to do.
Anything that he is never going to do. I mean, I don't see the point here. So you're saying that there are things that God would never do, therefore God is not omnipotent? I don't see the...
Yeah, so if what it means to have the power to do something is that there is a possible world where you do it, and there are certain things God is never going to do, that is to say, there are certain things that happen in no possible world, then necessarily what this means is that God doesn't have the power to do that.
Yeah, that would be a valid argument by the modus ponens inference rule. But what is it that God can do that God cannot do? Can you demonstrate?
So just a thing that God supposedly can do, but something that God will never do.
Yeah.
Do you acknowledge that there are some things that God has the power to do, but there's no possible world in which God does them.
Okay, now you're kind of being a bit semantic. So you're now saying, is there a possible world in which God can do something, but he does not do something? I'm not talking about what he does not do. I'm talking about what he cannot do. Because omnipotence is not about what God wills not to occur. It's about what he cannot do by the deficiency of his power. So I'm asking you, can you point to me what God cannot do in any possible world by a deficiency of his power, not by a mere negation of his decree?
Wait, hold on, because this just seems like a dodge of my question. The question specifically
I
is...
just corrected the question.
do you take questions to be propositional?
Of course, questions are propositional.
Questions have truth value? So
Some
wait, so
questions
when
do.
I ask how is your day, is that question true or false?
No, I don't think so. I don't
Yeah,
think that's
exactly.
either.
Questions aren't propositional. They don't have truth value.
You define
It depends
So
on,
so
it
when you
depends on
say
what you mean
I'm
by
correcting your
proposition.
question,
Because,
that's just nonsense.
okay,
but I would ask him what he means by proposition. I wouldn't presuppose it.
it doesn't really matter though. Could you just address what I just said about God's omnipotence? Because I think
Well,
it's
can you
shifting.
just answer the question?
What was the question?
So, are there things that God has the power to do, but doesn't do in any possible world?
So there's a difference between, okay, so are there things that God does not have the power to do but doesn't do in any possible world?
Are there things that God has the power to do, but that he doesn't do in any possible world?
I can't answer the question because I don't have comprehensive knowledge of the divine essence. But I could tell you that there are things that God can do that he will not do in this actual world. And I'm waiting for your argument against the omnipotence of God's will.
So what are the things that he won't do, that he can do, but he won't do? What are the, could you name like one?
For example, if he gives you eternal life, in my view, he won't take it away from you. He won't give people that don't have faith in the sacred scriptures sanctifying grace. I don't know. I don't see the point of these questions. I'm going to prove to you that God exists.
Yeah. Wait, so that's, so, okay. On this one, so he won't, if he gives you eternal life, he won't take it away from you. Great, perfect. Is there a possible world where he takes it away from you?
Yes, he can. Hypothetically, there's nothing intrinsically impossible for him taking it from you.
I guess, is God like pure necessity?
Pure necessity? What do you mean?
Are there like aspects to God that are that are contingent?
God's formal perfections are necessary, metaphysically speaking, if that's what you're asking.
But are there like aspects of God that are contingent?
Aspects of God, no.
Or maybe like,
God has
are God's behaviors contingent?
God's behavior is contingent.
What causes God to behave one way as opposed to a different one?
What caused his own essence? I don't see the point here.
And does his essence necessitate specific behaviors?
Does his essence necessitate a specific behavior of his divine essence?
Yeah, like the essence that you're referring to.
I would say it self-determines, because sometimes people draw this radical dichotomy between necessity and freedom. I think that something in a sense could be necessary and free. So his essence self-determines his act. It self-determines. I wouldn't say it's necessary. So I reject the dichotomy. I think it's a trichotomy. Is it necessary? Is it contingent? Or is it self-determined? I say self-determined.
What do you mean self-determined?
Self-determined as in it's been constituted by his very own essence and nothing extrinsic to it. But how did you address all these things don't address my argument?
It kind of seems like we're pivoting away. Because
you could be a modal anti-realist and still believe in God. You're not really addressing the substantial argument that I gave, which is the argument for motion. You've asked me a bunch of questions, but you're not.
Yeah, wait, we're making progress. We're like literally honing in on it. If we can demonstrate that God's behavior is necessary and not contingent, and you agree that there are things that God will not do, then there's no possible world, in which case we would conclude that God's not all powerful.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're chilling.
Now you switch the argument from critiquing the Lord's omnipotence to now trying to critique his essence from like a modal operative standpoint. I mean, obviously, someone can be what do you call it? Someone can be a modal anti-realist and still. Oh, thank you. Someone can be a modal anti-realist and still flipping believe in Jesus Christ. I don't see the point here. I really want you to like critique my argument for God before we get into the accidental elements of what God is.
Well, wait, this is like a critique of the argument. This is the critique of the premise that there's like an infinite God who is pure motion.
Pure act.
Yeah, like an infinite God who's pure act. That is what like all of this hinges on.
Okay.
That's like all the questions are like directly relevant to it.
So you agree with all the premises of all the premises that lead to the conclusion?
I'm just focusing on one, so we're not like overwhelmed with objections.
You haven't critiqued any premise. You're focusing on what God is, right? You're focusing on what God is.
That's one of the premises.
Okay, so what premise did you critique?
So the premise, what cause of potency? The third premise.
Sorry, what did you say?
The third premise.
What's the third premise?
That there is an infinite being, or who is pure act, or that this specifically that this chain must be caused by an infinite being who is pure act.
Okay, and
I'm saying that an infinite being who is pure act is not possible.
Why?
I was trying to explain it, and then you didn't like the argument, so you tried to bring us elsewhere.
I'm very sorry to interrupt you again, but to be honest, you showing or you trying to demonstrate how God's actions are necessary does not at all negate God existing or him being pure act. There are necessitarians who are Lutheran. So there are even some necessitarians that are Roman Catholic. I don't know how they try to address the councils.
Well, so if you agree with the necessitarianism,
I don't.
Oh, okay.
But that's irrelevant. That's my point. Whether I agree or I don't.
No, it is relevant. And I think the reason why you're so insistent on not engaging with it is because you know it's relevant.
Okay. The reason why I'm insistent on not engaging with it is because I seek for truth and I seek to debate on the substance. I don't seek to freestyle for TikTok.
This is the substance.
This is not the substance.
The premise, I don't think he understands the premise.
Right.
The third premise?
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the argument for motion. I understand all of this. The argument is just that I think that this is like incoherent.
Look, if you concede that a necessitarian could believe in a pure actual God, then what's the point of you even trying to...
I don't think that that's coherent at all.
Oh my gosh. Okay, just give your argument for why God would be necessary. Just go on.
For why God would be necessary?
Okay, so keep in mind...
Specifically that his behavior would be necessary.
Okay, wait, before we land on this point, just want to make it clear for the room. This argument is valid. The only thing that is invalid about this argument is what you think God is. So the only thing that's invalid about this argument is that you don't think an infinite being with pure act is possible, because that infinite being with pure act would be a necessary being. That's the only thing you've disagreed with in this argument.
No, because this, so specifically it would conflict with God's attribute of being omnipotent.
And that would conflict with God's attribute of being omnipotent. So
yeah.
Those are the two. So those are the two things. So you agree with all the inferences in the argument, apart from these two things.
No, I certainly don't agree with the inferences in the argument.
Okay.
So I guess sure, if you don't like this argument, that's fine. We could.
No, you can stay on it. I could address everything. I'm chilling.
Oh, are you sure? Because it seems like you didn't. Because I've been trying to talk about this one argument for the last like 7 minutes, and you've been doing like everything you can to like avoid talking
away
about
from the substance of the debate. Since
I've been telling you that this is the substance of the debate, and you've been running from it for like the last like 7 minutes. So if you don't like this argument, I can give you like another critique of the.
No, I love it.
Argument for motion.
Try it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure, perfect. So in terms of being self-determined, what's the necessary and sufficient for being self-determined?
What's the necessary what?
The necessary and sufficient condition for something being self-determined.
The necessary and sufficient condition?
Yeah.
The necessary and sufficient condition for something being self-determined is the intrinsic principles that constitute the thing in question. The intrinsic principles that constitute the thing in question is the ousia, according to the blessed Eastern Fathers, and the Lord Jesus Christ, actually, and Aristotle. So the ousia is the principle of action, and it's the thing that formally constitutes a thing and gives its intrinsic principles to guide the thing in motion. Those things are what constitutes God's self-determined act, and those things are perfect because God is perfect.
When we talk about intrinsic principles, what do we mean?
Intrinsic principles. So intrinsic means internal to the thing, and principles mean a source for a particular action. So the internal sources of action in God are things like the goodness, the truth, the power, the intellect, the persons, the Holy Spirit, the Son, the Blessed Father, everything.
Do specific principles necessitate specific acts?
Do specific principles necessitate specific acts?
Yeah.
Do specific principles necessitate specific acts?
Yeah.
In a general sense, or are you talking about like in God?
So, like, if God is like maximally perfect,
thanks for the gifts, guys.
Can he do anything other than like the most perfect thing, for example? No. So it is necessitated by his like maximum
I never
perfection.
said that. So
I thought I heard no. So can God do anything less than like the most perfect thing?
So I think God always does the most perfect thing, because I take perfection in the Aristotelian sense, where something is perfect by reason of its teleological end, or its telos. And so because everything's end is to glorify God, everything that God does in every possible world is perfect. And it's absolutely perfect because of its end. Or sorry, relatively perfect, sorry.
Oh, then we're going to collapse into necessitarianism. So do you agree that in each scenario there's going to be one most perfect thing?
In every possible world?
No, just in like each scenario. Every time, or every, gosh, you probably don't like time words. Every instance of God.
You're saying in every temporal event, is there going to be like a most perfect
every one of God's behaviors. So we have like a sequence of all the behaviors
what do you mean by
God
behaviors?
ever does.
These are such weird terms.
You literally said that self-determined is like the intrinsic principles that like constitute specific acts.
Yeah. But okay. I'm asking you, what do you mean by behaviors?
Probably something like acts.
Okay, cool. All right. I just wanted to make sure that we're
sure.
All right, continue.
So, do you agree that in every time God acts, that he is going to do the most perfect act, the maximally perfect act?
Depends on what you mean by maximally perfect.
In the same sense that you'd say like God is maximally perfect.
No, obviously not in the same sense. That's ridiculous. Because then God would be creating himself, which is absolutely repugnant to sacred scriptures and to
So reason. God does something other than the maximally perfect act?
Well, God does everything relatively perfect. He doesn't have to do everything absolutely perfect. If by maximally
is perfect relative?
Yeah, perfection can be relative or maximal, as Edward Fazer points out in Intro to Scholasticism, page 249, as St. Thomas Aquinas points out in Article 28 of his Summa Theologica.
Bro, it's the page numbers. That's pretty cool.
And if you have...
So what do you mean by relative perfection?
So relative means based on some condition, whereas absolute means abstracted from any condition. So relative perfection is going to be based on the condition of the end, whereas absolute is going to be based on the thing itself. Absolutely, the only thing that's absolutely sorry, I'm starting this flipping 5 a.m. The only thing that's absolutely perfect is the Blessed Father, the Blessed Son, and the Blessed Holy Spirit in that one divine essence. And the only things that are relatively perfect are the things that are perfect in virtue of their end. And everything is moved to a specific end. And all ends are intended ultimately to glorify God. So everything that God does is relatively perfect, but not absolutely perfect, because the only thing absolutely perfect is God himself.
Are the end that things have necessary?
are the ends that things have necessary. So some people have different views. Some people, like for example, the Blessed Francisco Suarez in the Roman Catholic Church, he takes the hypothetical necessarian view. Some people take the determined view. Me personally, I think like everything happens with a hypothetical necessity, or you could say like you could say with proximate determination.
So I'm not sure where that leaves like the answer to the question. So like could these
answer the question
teloses,
because it's not absolutely necessary. It's only hypothetically necessary or proximately determinate, meaning that it's determinate on the part of the divine decree, but it's still free on the part of the natural growth of the agent. So like I can give multiple examples, but I don't want to talk too much.
sure. I mean, like could the teloses be different?
In a different possible world, remotely, no. Proximately, yes. Remote just means overall, and proximate just means immediate. But yeah.
I'm definitely gonna need an example of this. So they in a different possible world, the telos world could be different, but also couldn't be different. I'm confused.
I mean, in a possible world, God could have created a plant such that it grows downward, right, instead of upward.
Sure.
But when it grows downward in that possible world, in my view, in some way, it would still glorify God because it's His creation. So remote just means overall, or like antecedently, like in the analytic traditional view. Antecedently, it glorifies God. Consequently and proximately or immediately, right, it's different. So it would be necessary in some sense, but it will also be hypothetical and free in another sense. So that's what we mean by hypothetical necessity. I hope that these are answering your critiques against my argument, because I just gave you the argument for God. So
Yeah. So So in terms of the two categories, we have the proximate, and then what was the other one?
So the proximate and the remote categories, which are expatiated.
Yeah, sure. Proximate and remote. So is relative perfection, so you said relative perfection is based on the end. Is relative perfection based on the proximate end or the remote end?
Relative perfection. So it's based on its proximate end and its remote end.
Then we have a problem. So in a different possible world, could the relative perfection be different?
In a different possible world, no, because relative perfection is just like it's like an act. It's like a status of a thing. Like we call it perfect because it's achieved its end.
Perfect. Then we have necessitarianism. So we have relative perfection could not be different in a different possible world. That means relative perfections are necessary. Relative perfections are the determiner of God's behavior necessarily. Thus,
that doesn't really even make any sense.
Thus, God's actions are necessary, not contingent.
Relative perfection is the proposition that when something has achieved its end, it is perfect. That's not necessary. That's not modal anti-realism, because modal anti-realism is about the thing itself. It's not about what you call a thing. Like if I call you a man in every possible world, that's not me saying that you exist necessarily as a man. You could be a dog and I'll still call you a man. I'm just saying that the term man would always be applied to you, or at least the sense behind the term would always be applied to you. The sense behind the term relative perfection will always be applied to that something that achieves its end. It doesn't mean that the way or what it is going to be necessary. So what you're doing right now is you're making a categorical error.
Wait, so maybe we could re-clarify. Could relative perfections be different in a different possible world?
Damn, thanks for the gifts, guys. Sorry, what did you say?
Could relative perfections be different in a different possible world?
Yeah, so the whatness of the relative perfections, or as Aristotle would call them, the substantial form, or the as John, I forgot his names, but the form or their whatnesses, their formal constituents, they can be different in each possible world, but they're still going to be relatively perfect. That's just that word I'm going to use for signifying that they achieve their end. This wouldn't lead to necessarianism.
Do you acknowledge that this is the exact opposite answer that you gave to the exact same question that I asked you like 3 minutes ago?
About what? I didn't.
I asked you, could relative perfection be different in a different possible world? And you said no. And now you're saying yes. Which one is it?
Because. So, do you know what a composed and divided sense of a term is?
No.
Okay, so there's a difference between what something is and what I call it. So I'm always gonna call it relative perfection unless like I'm speaking a different language or whatever. But I'm talking about what it is or the way that the thing is gonna be. The way that the thing is gonna be is obviously gonna change. That's my point. So it's not gonna be necessitarianism.
Okay, wait. So in terms of like relative perfection, in terms of God's relative perfection, could this be different in a different possible world?
God doesn't have relative perfection. God is absolutely perfect. The Trinity is absolutely perfect. He's not relatively perfect.
So, and maybe I'm just like
what the hell? Sorry, what did you say?
Hey, that was pretty cool. It's a cool little animation.
I know, right?
So, you indicated that God's behavior is based on his like relative perfections.
No, I don't even know what you mean by that. God's behavior. Okay, I don't like use this word behavior because it reduces
his acts.
Yes, God's acts is logically dependent on his own will, his own essence. That's all I'm saying. It's not dependent on any extrinsic variable or any extrinsic condition outside of his essence. It's based on his essence. It's grounded on his essence. It's founded on his essence.
And is his essence necessary?
His essence is necessary.
So if his essence is necessary and his acts are based on his necessary essence,
his acts are necessary. No,
so his acts are necessary.
Okay, but would that mean that he's not free?
So what this means is that he's not all powerful.
Okay,
because specifically, if the things God does are necessary, then this means that the definition of having a power is not going to be met. So if all of God's actions are necessary, and one of the actions that God does is not to take away someone's place in heaven. After God puts someone in heaven, God's not going to take that away from them. That is necessarily going to be the case, which means that there's no possible world where that happens. And we agreed earlier that if you have the power to do X,
that's not what follows at all.
So which step of that do you reject?
Because you ignored my categorical distinction of a hypothetical necessity. That's for one. For two, so just because God's act logically depends on his essence and his essence is necessary does not mean that God is not free.
That's not my claim.
Okay, so you agree that
do you understand my claim?
Wait, I just want to set this down for a second because some people would say that because God's act is necessary, therefore he's not all powerful because he doesn't have free will. So you agree?
Well, I'm not. I know that's nothing involving free will at all. The words free will, to God haven't come out of my mouth at all. I'm not sure where this is coming from.
Ian, I understand. I just want to get explicit about something so we can move on.
Sure.
So you agree that in my view, God is self-determined and he is free. You just think that he's not all powerful. Yes?
I don't know what the status of free will would be given necessitarianism. I'm not willing to make the claim that he wouldn't be free.
No, I'm not advocating for necessitarianism.
But I'm arguing that like this view has collapsed into necessitarianism.
Okay, you're saying that he's not free. Then you're saying he's not free.
Let me clarify. So not like overall necessitarianism. I'm not making that claim, but that all of God's actions are necessary, that they couldn't be otherwise.
That all of God's acts and what? Sorry.
That's my claim. All of God's acts are necessary.
All of God's acts are necessary.
Yep.
Okay, that's your claim. Whatever. Yes. So can you show me how God is not all powerful? Let's just stick on that claim you made.
Yep.
There.
So from the premise that all God's acts are necessary, and that there are some acts that God has the power to perform, but will not perform. if God will not perform them, then he will necessarily not perform them. This means that there is no action, or there's no possible world where he will perform them. Do you agree?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I'm not track.
That's fine. I know it's like very late where you are. It's okay. It's just,
Thank you.
Yeah. So from the starting point that all of God's acts are necessary, and that there are certain acts that God is not going to do, that he won't take away your place in heaven if he's like given it to you. He's not gonna like put you. He's not gonna like put the veritas into heaven and then like take the veritas out of heaven.
I don't think that's what we mean by no. Okay, now I know what you mean. Yeah, so there's a difference between first act and second act, which is why I didn't want you to use the term behaviors. I wanted to use the term act. So the first act is what God is, his actual being, his stance of being, and second act is the energeia, as the Eastern Orthodox would rightly call it, sacred scriptures call it, or just the activities of God. So the energeia has a logical relation to creation, the same way that the sun has a logical relation to you know when you're like how you took a good picture in your profile picture, you were standing in front of the sun. If you turned around, the sun wouldn't be on your face, right? But the sun is still there. So there's a logical relation from the sun to you, right? But there's still a real relation of you to the sun, insofar as like you existing in that spatial temporal coordinates allow the sun to shine in your face there. So there's a real relation from the creation to God. There's a logical relation. Yeah, there's a logical relation from God to creation. And that logical relation, God could import different information into that creation in different possible worlds. However, remotely, the end is always going to be the same because his first act is always the same, which is to glorify himself. And so every single possible world will always glorify God. So it's necessary in that sense, but it's also hypothetical and contingent in the other sense.
Wait, so every possible world will be one where God is glorified?
Yes.
Does glorification require creation?
No, absolutely not.
So God,
because Jesus
like
Christ
God
says in John 17:5, share with me the glory that I had with thee before the world began. So glory does not always require creation.
Oh, sure. So even without creation, it would just be like the Father and the Son and like the Holy Spirit like glorifying each other.
Yes, but even hypothetically, a unipersonal God would have glory. By glory, we just mean the expression of the divine essence in act.
So I guess like, oh gosh, I don't know if I want to get too deep into this, but I am curious about this. So I take glorification as being like an action. Who's the actor?
I don't understand.
So you're saying that
like,
every possible world will like glorify God. Who is the actor that's like doing the glorifying?
Oh, I know what you mean now. Who's the actor? But what do you mean by actor? Because actors imply agency, and I think God can glorify himself in every single possible world without agency. Keep in mind, the possible worlds exist in God. It's not the other way around. It's not that God exists in these possible worlds. The possible worlds exist in God. And God moves each possible world and it's like the conditions of each possible world to their relative ends. And so when God is revealed in the possible worlds, he necessarily will be glorified because his essence has all the form perfections that are sufficient for glorification, which is the expression of his majesty and his being. So glorification would occur in every possible world. This doesn't lead to necessitarianism. This doesn't lead to God being not omnipotent. And so I think my argument so far has sufficiently displayed God's existence.
I feel like you just shot yourself in the foot. So God is not in any possible world?
So I'm talking about in the order of reality. So I'm saying that the possible worlds are in him. It's not that he's in the possible worlds.
So God is not present in any possible world?
He is present. It's like for example, like my soul is present in me, but I'm present with my soul. Like it's not as if I'm present on my soul. My soul is in me because my soul, like I believe that my soul can leave my body. So the soul is in me, but if my soul, like I wouldn't say like I'm not present with my soul. So the worlds are present in God, right? They're present in God, but God is still present with the worlds because God is he's transcendentally perfect. So my point to you, and this is kind of an irrelevant point because this doesn't even matter. The
Wait,
point
is he
to you
present
is
with all of them, or is he present in all of them?
he's present with all of them.
So when we say that there's like a possible world where God does make like a goose that has two heads, and then there's a possible world where God does not make a goose with two heads, I would take this as there being like God 1 in world 1 and God 2 in world 2.
That's completely fine. That's not my business. My point to you is,
Well, wait, do you agree or disagree with that? Because that seems incompatible with your metaphysics.
Obviously, I disagree, but I think you're hinging on something that's...
Well, so if you disagree with that, then I feel like this collapses God's omnipotence.
That's a terrible argument. But
I haven't even given the argument.
Okay, look, here's my main point.
So what you actually mean is like,
here's my main
like
point before you say one more thing. Let me address my main point. My main point is that God's glory would always be exercised in every possible world. Whether you want to say that he's in the possible world or he's not in the possible, okay, fine. I can just grant you that he's in the possible. It doesn't matter. My point is,
my argument works better if he's not in the possible world.
God's glory is exercised and explicated in every possible world. Now, I've given you the argument I've given you the first way from the blessed Saint Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah, and we're going through the argument. I don't know why you keep on
problems. You've hinged on 3 problems.
Well, it seems like what we keep on going back to is like a bunch of.
I'm still speaking.
It seems like you're going back to like whining.
Let me finish.
Like I don't know why you refuse to engage with the dialogue. You keep on running away from it.
Dialogue. Let me finish.
You keep on running away from the argument. Why are you running?
You hinged on 3 problems. You hinged on God's omnipotence. I debunked those arguments. You hinged.
You haven't. We're still talking about them. I don't know why you're giving a victory speech. You haven't done very well.
I'm not giving a victory speech.
You've said you've defeated all the arguments. We're still talking about them.
Can I finish speaking before you speak?
Well, if you're gonna give like a victory speech, I just think it's like a bit out of turn.
Hold on.
And you're just posturing because you're trying to get out.
No.
I'm trying to get back to the.
Like, bro, stop. Like, I know you hear me talking. You're not deaf. Jesus Christ. Like, this entire time, and you've been giving argument after argument after argument. Anytime Vertus asks you a question, bro, anytime he asks you a question, all you do is give one sentence and you be like, no, that's not what I mean. No, I need an explanation for this. No, I need an explanation for that.
Give an example.
Like, can you please just engage?
Yeah, I am engaging. I just want to stick with the argument that we've been talking about.
With the argument?
We're sticking with the argument because it hasn't been defeated yet. Yeah, because I don't like it when people pivot away.
What do you mean you don't like it?
I think it's cowardly when people pivot.
What do you mean
I'm
it's
sorry.
cowardly? That's how
I think a good debater should stick to the argument and not pivot. I apologize.
How can a good debater stick to the argument?
They should stick to the argument because if you pivot away, it means that you don't have a proper response. He's pivoting away because he doesn't want to talk about it anymore.
What do you mean? How do you know that he doesn't?
He doesn't because he keeps on trying to move away from it. He doesn't like talking about it.
He has to stop.
And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that he doesn't like to talk about it. I'm sorry he didn't like the argument, but he hasn't defeated it.
How do you know he didn't like the argument?
Because he keeps on trying to run away from it.
Well, how do you know he's trying to run away from it?
Because we have all observed him try to run back to his conclusion. He's run away from like the necessity of God's actions.
Give your justification for that.
Give what?
Give your justification on how he's trying to run.
Yeah, premise 1, we are justified in believing our seemings in the absence of defeaters. Premise 2, it seems like he's running away from the argument. Conclusion, we are justified in believing that he's running away from the argument. Which premise do you reject?
I reject both.
So you reject that we're justified in believing our seemings in the absence of defeaters?
My God, I reject both.
Yeah, so you reject the argument or the premise that we're justified in accepting our seemings in the absence of defeaters. You reject that.
I reject both. Did I not?
So yeah, sure. I'll give you a sub argument. That's fine. I'll give you the self-defeat argument for phenomenal conservatism.
This whole time it's been question after question.
I'm giving you a premise conclusion argument. Do you want the argument?
Question after question after question.
So here's the thing.
If he gives a word like versus as soon as
bro, they lost and now they're like dogpiling.
No.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm not
Whoa.
dogpiling. I literally
Yeah.
stopped
You are.
everybody.
There's like 10
Recognize
people.
that
There's
you're
4 people jumping on me.
posturing.
Like
No, no.
nobody, Eric, no,
Yeah, no one's
nobody's
jumping.
jumping you. I'm
No
literally
one's
talking to
jumping.
you, man. I'm talking to you. I'm
Yeah,
just saying,
okay.
going question after question after question. And
Yeah, I'm
if
giving
I wanted to
premises.
kick in, I would have been kicked in and been up here for like over an hour right about now.
Damn, that's crazy.
I mean, all I'm gonna say, guys, is like I just wanted to finish what I was saying. Ian, I respect you. I won't interrupt you, but please don't interrupt me because I don't have the ability right now to do the whole rapid back to back thing. It's like 5 a.m. But I just wanted to say that so far that I've given, you might disagree and I respect it, but we could talk about that. But it seems like so far you're talking about phenomenal conservatism. So I'm just going to say that it seems like to me so far that I've given you the argument, right, from motion. And when I gave you the argument from motion, you said that what you disagree with the argument, what you disagree with the argument is about what God is, because you think this would lead to different problems on my framework of God, which is God not being omnipotent, God being necessary, well, not God being necessary, but necessitarianism, God not being omnipotent. I think I've sufficiently addressed all your objections on those conditions, but if you have more objections, you could go ahead. I could do maybe like 20 minutes more, and then that's completely fine. I thank the host for allowing me up here to debate, and I thank everyone so much for giving me so many gifts. But yeah, Christ is Lord, and yeah, we could continue if you want, or you could add me and you could have a formal debate, or yeah, like whatever. What do you?
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, let's keep on going with the same argument I've been making. So
All right, cool.
we agree that all of God's acts are necessary.
All of God's acts are necessary.
Yeah.
It depends on what you mean. So I think that God in first act is absolutely necessary and self-determined and free. And I think that God in second act is hypothetically necessary and free.
What does hypothetically necessary mean?
Hypothetical necessity is like relative necessity. So it's necessary based on some condition. It's also called conditional necessity in some analytic frameworks. And it was first coined by, is it Boethius? I can't remember. Maybe St. Basil. I can't remember exactly, but it's basically the type of necessity that goes something like this. Let's say you have a proposition. Ian is a human being and he is sitting down. Well, the proposition is half true because you are a human being, but it's only going to be fully true when you sit down. So the consequence of the proposition is necessarily entailed by the action of you sitting down. So that's going to be conditionally necessary. So God's second act and its relation to this world is conditionally necessary on his decree. And his decree is to save people from their sins through our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, which is only hypothetically necessary on the part of the incarnation. And yeah, God's first act, his actual state of being, is absolutely necessary because God is divinely perfect.
So, are the set of second acts that God does, are these going to be true in every possible world?
It's not second acts, it's second acts.
What did I say?
I thought you said second acts, sorry.
What did you say?
I said it's not second acts, it's second act.
Oh, sure. I'm not. I don't mean axe like the thing you use to chop wood. When I say axe,
No. Okay, it's whatever. Just
am I? Gosh, am I like? Is there like a? Am I having like an aneurysm? I feel like we're saying the exact same thing.
No, ACT, not ACTS.
Sure. Yeah. I guess that's just like how I pronounce it. Oh wait, second act. So, okay. God's second act refers to his, like the things that God does, correct?
Yeah, the energeia, the activities of God.
Sure. So but this does refer to like a set. Is this set necessary?
What do you mean it refers to a set?
Like
Because
the set
sets
of the things
sets
that
in
God does.
sets in analytic philosophy are abstract. I don't think it's abstract because it has a causal relation. So it doesn't refer to a set in my view.
So it's not like a collection of things?
Okay, so when you say sets, it's just like you just mean a collection of things?
That's what a set is, yeah?
Not really, because when I was reading on sets, they're typically abstract.
Yeah, they're an abstract collection of things.
I don't think it's abstract. That's my point. So it's not a set.
So I'll just pull up like the Wikipedia page because I don't know. It's like the philosophy classic where you like read something, but it doesn't really like you kind of like skip over the basics. A set is a collection of different things. That's all a set is. Collection of different
And
things.
it says in mathematics, is
Yeah.
mathematics an abstract study, or is it like a concrete? It's an abstract. It's an abstract.
Yeah. Wait. So is God's second act a collection of different things?
God's second act is physical because obviously the energeia, right? The energeia or like the activities of God are physical, real things. They're not just like an abstract compilation of set of things or something like that.
So is it like a set of like physical things?
It's not.
Because you can have sets of physical things as well. Like you could have,
It's
there's
not-
like
it's
a
not a
set
set
of like
it's
the
not a
furniture
set
in my
at all.
house.
It's not a set because it itself is not abstract. But can you just what's the argument? Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to get clear on this. So what is like it refers to his activity?
Yeah, his activity.
Is his activity going to be the same in every possible world?
Yes and no. So, Blessed Suarez talks about this. I always quote the people in case people want to read after. But Francisco Suarez, one of the blessed scholastics in the Roman Catholic Church, he speaks about this. So basically, God's intrinsic properties of his second act, those are necessary because they are his essence. However, its extrinsic relation to creation is only hypothetically necessary, as I just said, or conditionally necessary.
So, within God's activity, is there any possible world where he brings you into heaven and then kicks you out?
What?
Is there a possible world within God's like activity?
I don't think it's that God in every world, in any world, will ever bring you into heaven and kick you out.
Oh, then we've proven the point.
That doesn't
Okay,
mean.
cool.
That doesn't,
Yeah, wait. Let me show you
does
the
not
contradiction.
mean
I got you.
necessarianism, bro. Oh my gosh!
What it does show is no omnipotence. So, because earlier you said God has the power to bring you into heaven and then kick you out, but he's not going to do that.
Okay, just because God will not do something in every possible world does not take away his power to do the thing or something. Like I can say,
wait, can I give the argument?
If I say, for example,
Can I give the argument?
I could justify it, but you want to give an argument?
Yeah.
Okay, but I just want to give an example before you give the argument, so just
Sure.
to make sure. Okay, so like if let's say for 1 month I say I will not speak English. Okay, ¿Qué estás haciendo? What are you doing? I will not speak English. Now, if I say I will not speak English for this whole month and I do not speak English, how can someone tell me that I don't have the power to speak English? Because what's power? The ability to do something. How can someone tell me I don't have the ability to speak English? That's obviously ridiculous. I still have the ability to speak English, even if I don't want to speak it for a whole month. So God, because of the moral conditions and because of his psychological constancy, will never just will not, in my opinion, because I'm pretty sure theologians will disagree, but he will not bring someone into heaven. Why do I have so much energy now? Yeah, but he will not bring someone into heaven and kick the person out. That's impossible. But it does not mean that it's impossible on the part of his divine power. It just means it's impossible on the part of his psychological constancy.
Is there a possible world where it happens?
there's a possible, there's no, I don't think that there's a possible world where it will happen.
That's perfect.
Because he will never execute that, or we will never actually do that.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. So then, and you agreed earlier that if you have the power to do X, then there must exist a possible world in which you do X. There is no possible world where God brings you into heaven and then kicks you out of heaven. Therefore, by modus tollens, God does not have the power to bring you into heaven.
I don't think.
Which premise do you reject?
I very much remember saying that if to be all powerful, you must have the power by which you can do X. I didn't say
which
by
premise?
which. No. I didn't say by which you will do X or execute X in every possible. I didn't say that. I said by which you can do X. If someone's recording, they're gonna see it. I said by which you can do X, not by which you will do X.
The number premise you reject. What number is that?
I can't remember the syllogism that you gave me.
Yeah, I'll give it again. So, if you have the power to do X, then there must exist a possible world in which you do X. Premise 2, there is no possible world where God brings
then
you.
I disagree with premise 1 then.
And do you acknowledge that throughout this entire conversation, you have consistently agreed with this and now you're flip-flopping on that?
I'm very, very, very sure that I said this. I changed the word do to like can do. But I mean, if you want to hinge on that, I apologize. But I'm pretty sure I did say that.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, we can work with that. So, but you would still hold that you can do it?
Yeah, that God can do. There's nothing contrary to his divine power to do such.
So, if you can do something, then there's a possible world where you do it.
No, that doesn't follow. How do you draw
What do
that
you mean?
inference?
So when you say can, what do you mean?
So can, I just mean that it's possible on the part of his divine power, not that he will ever do it in any possible world.
So it's possible. So therefore, if God can do something, then it's possible that he does it. If it's possible that God does it, then there's a possible world where he does it. Do you agree?
I don't think so.
Which of those do you reject?
I think it's a non sequitur.
It follows from it's two hypothetical syllogisms. X implies Y, Y implies Z, therefore X implies Z.
Yeah, I think I reject the consequence from the antecedent. So I think I think it's sufficient. Okay, here's the problem. So I think it's sufficient to say that if God is all powerful in every possible world, he can do X. But I choose not to speak on whether in every possible world he will do X, because Christians only derive that from the blessed sacred scriptures. We don't derive that from anywhere else. We derive what God will do from the sacred scriptures. Everything else is up to God alone and up to God alone. So I'm going to tell you that in this actual world, Christ died for our sins, and the gospel, John 3:16. However, in every possible world, what God will do, I know not. I know what God can do, and what God can do is everything that's metaphysically, intrinsically possible. And so God would maintain his omnipotence.
So I'm just going to need you to reject a premise then. The premise 1 is that if God can do X, then it's possible that he does X. Premise 2, if it's possible God does X, then there's a possible world where God does X.
Okay, what do you mean by possible world? Because I don't. If you mean like, okay, let's just say second premise. I can't remember.
So you reject that if it's possible for you to do something, then there's a possible world where you do that thing. You reject that.
Is there any problem with rejecting that?
Yeah. That's just like it's what a possible world is. It's like
I think that's equivocating what the will can do and what the will executes. Because some people in Christian theology, for example, would say that it's possible for God to forgive people's sins without the crucifixion of Christ. But some people would actually argue that in every possible world, God will crucify Christ. So I think I'm not an analytic. Like I'm quite new to analytic philosophy, so I'm not sure of the whole thing about this. But I'm pretty sure, from just like a prima facie standpoint, that there's nothing wrong with me saying God in like I lost my train of thought again. It's fine. But God, what's it called? I don't think there's anything wrong with me saying that God can do X in each possible world, but I don't know if he will do X in each possible world.
I'm not making
just
a
because
claim
of God.
that he will do it. I'm just saying that there's a possible world.
Yeah, you're saying that there's a possible world in which
just
he
that
will do it.
there is like a possible world where he does it. So a
Yeah,
possible
I don't
world
think so.
is just a complete and consistent way the world is or could have been. That's all it means. That's all a possible world is.
Yeah, I just don't think that's true.
Okay, wait. I'm sorry if there's sorry if there's like a change in my mic quality. I had to plug my phone. Oop, fuck! I don't want. Are you able to?
Yeah, can you hear me?
And
Oh,
your
yeah.
mic is going in and out.
Yeah. Okay.
Your coffee mug.
Sorry. Yeah. Wait. Okay. Wait. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We hear you.
Yep. Okay. Cool. So then we can just take out the words possible world and we can substitute it. So for premise 2, we can say if it's possible God does X, then there is a complete and consistent way the world is or could have been or could be where God does X.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I agree with that inference. I need to study more modal logic to see the consequences of disagreeing with that inference, but I'm not sure if I agree.
So you think it's possible God does something, but that there is no way the world could be where God does that thing?
Yeah, because obviously there's a real distinction, in my view, between the potential of the will and the execution of the will. So, like, okay, it's different to say it's possible that a plant will grow and it fails to grow in this world. So there's a possible world in which a plant will grow. But that's different from saying it's possible that God can do X. So there must exist some possible world in which he will execute and do X. I think that's a jump. I don't think that's necessarily true because in the first example, the plant is not a conscious agent and it doesn't have any psychological constancy or psychological habits. Whereas in the second example, God does have psychological constancy. And so I'm not sure there. The Bible teaches us not to speak on things that we don't know, but it teaches us on what we do know about this world. So I stick on that. But my point to you is that I don't see how this leads me to conclude that God is not omnipotent. And that's my main focus of the crux of the issue, whether God is not omnipotent by denying your inference.
Well, I think if you deny the inference, you just fall into absurdity. I have literally no idea what possible means if it doesn't refer to like some way the world could be.
Because possible categorically could just be speaking about the intrinsic power of the will, as the blessed schoolmen have talked about over and over, especially as Sacred Theology, book 3 on the Trinity talks about when it says that, look, if you're talking about what God can do with his will, then what God will do with his will, those are two different categories or two different predicates. So for example, if I say God can do X, that means in each possible world, God can do X. That's all it would mean for me. If I say that God will do X, that means in each possible world, God will do X. That's all it would mean for me. But I don't think I have to say God can do X, then there exists some possible world in which God will do X. Absolutely not.
I just have no idea what else this would mean. I like truly, I'm like baffled as to what
Because
the
if you
semantics
read-
could even
Blessed Scotus on the Ordinatio, when he argues for the incarnation of Christ, and he tries to argue that it would be necessary in every possible world. The critique to that is just going to be like rejecting that inference, or what Scotus would argue is like, yeah, that God could have saved someone in a different way. People like Christians believe that stabbing Christ in his side or just stabbing his hand and allowing blood to come out, that's sufficient for everyone's salvation already. But the crucifixion was the perfect way to do it. But
Could you define possible?
Some people,
maybe I think maybe that'll be the.
Sorry, can I define what?
Define possible.
So possible could be used in different senses, but possible for me is just going to be based on potency, which is the argument I gave you from motion in the first place. is going to be based on the limitation of being and the capacity for that particular being to change.
But can I just get like a definition? Like what? Like just a definition of possible?
Yes. So I just explain. I don't think I have a formal definition in my head, but I explain it as the capacity for a being to be otherwise.
The capacity for a being to be otherwise. Okay.
Or for the capacity for some event to be otherwise or something.
So if something has the capacity to be otherwise, is there a way in which it could be otherwise?
Yes, yes, exactly. There is a way in which it could be otherwise. It doesn't mean that there's a way in which it will be otherwise.
Oh, cool. That's the definition of a possible world.
Okay, no, okay, bro, you're not getting it. Okay, so now you're just saying that it's the definition of a possible world.
Yeah.
But look here. That means that if you agree with what I just said, that means that the only inference that I can, okay, not the only inference. It's not obviously it's not the only inference, but what I'm led to say is that there exists some world in which God can do X. It doesn't mean that there exists some world in which God will necessarily do X.
We're just saying like a world where God will possibly do X.
Yes, exactly. So you're saying a world in which God could possibly do X or could do X, not that he would do it in that possible world. Okay, that's a better expatiation. So you're saying that there's a world in which God possibly would do X, right? But you're not saying that. You're not saying that there's a possible world in which God will do X. You see the difference, right?
Well, we can work with this. So, so in order to have the power, there needs to be a world where God does X. In order for God to have the power to do X, there needs to be a world where God could do X.
Right.
Where God possibly does X.
Yeah, where God possibly does X. Yeah.
So okay. If there's not a world where God possibly does X, then God does not have the power to do it.
If there's not a world where God possibly does X, then what, sorry?
If there's not a world where God possibly does X, then God does not have the power to do X. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We agreed earlier that there is no possible world where God puts someone into heaven and then takes them out of heaven.
No. So okay, now I see what you just did. That was actually smart of you. I'll just correct you a bit. So there's no world in which God will actually do X in any possible world. But obviously there's a possible world in which God could take someone out of heaven. That doesn't mean that there's a possible world in which God will take someone out of heaven. Do you see the difference?
No.
There's obviously a difference.
Wait. So I do see the difference.
Right.
I think if you're saying like God could take someone out of heaven, that's the same as saying God possibly will take someone out of heaven. I take possibly will to be the same under this semantics as saying God could do this thing.
You're saying that God could do this thing. Sorry, could you repeat what you just said?
So to say God possibly will do something is the same thing as saying God could do that thing.
To say that God could possibly do something is the same thing as saying that God would do that thing.
No, God possibly will do a thing is the same as saying God could do a thing. That possibly will is equivalent to could.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Yep. Okay. Gotcha. So, there is no world where God possibly will put someone into heaven and then take them out of heaven.
No, I think that there's a possible world in which God could take someone out of heaven because there's no intrinsic possibility there. But like, for example, Satan was in heaven. He fell from heaven. But I don't think that God would, but because of his promise.
So God possibly will take someone out of heaven?
Yeah, but God possibly could. Possibly
No,
could.
no, no.
take
Wait,
someone-
I'm saying possibly would.
or God in another possible world.
The word I'm using.
Yeah,
God possibly
possibly.
will take. God possibly will put someone into heaven and then take someone out of heaven.
Yeah, God possibly would in another possible world take someone out of heaven and put him there, whatever. Like how he did Satan. Jesus Christ said he saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning.
So the exact opposite of what you've been saying for the last 30 minutes?
Okay, no, Ian, because we was disagreeing on the semantics of whether God could, whether saying that, bro, I have a headache now. We was disagreeing on something. You know what I'm talking about.
So is there anything that God has the power to do, but there's no possible world in which he will do it?
Are we disagreeing that God, sorry, what did you say?
So is there anything that God has the power to do, but there's no possible world where God will do it?
Is there anything that God has the power to do, but there's no possible world in where God would do it? Yeah, I think that God has the power to do a couple of things, and there's no possible world in which God would do it.
Okay. Yep. Let's represent one of these arbitrary things as X. So X has the property. God has the power to do it, and it has the property. There is no possible world where God will do it. So, if God could do X, then that means that he possibly will do X. There's no possible world where God will do X.
It means that.
Therefore, God could not do X.
It means that there's a possible world where God possibly would do X, and you even agreed with me that when you said
which premise do you reject?
I'm correcting your premise. Okay, I don't have to.
What do you mean correct my premise? It's my premise. What do you reject?
Sorry, bro. I've heard it. I am trying to. What was I trying to say? I'm trying to like use a better word so that we can get on the substance. Actually, let me drink some water, sir.
Keep going.
All right, yeah. So like I said, I'm trying to use a better term so that we can come to agreements. But yeah, so if you mean by, I would just like you to change the word possibly will, because will implies like execution, whereas like possibly would is equivalent, according to even you, with could. Possibly would, could. So yeah, I think that's a better term.
So okay, wait. Yeah, sure. So we can do possibly would. That's fine. So does there exist anything that God has the power to do, but that he wouldn't possibly do?
Does there exist anything that God has the power to do that he couldn't possibly do? No.
Wouldn't possibly do.
There's anything that he wouldn't possibly do. He wouldn't possibly do. No, I don't think so.
There's nothing that God has the power to do that he wouldn't possibly do.
If you mean by wouldn't, you mean execution. No. If you mean just like the mere possibility of his will, yes. Sorry, I mean, oh my God, I'm getting so tired. Okay,
that's okay. It's okay.
I meant to switch it the other way around. So if you mean by something that he could do, right? So can you just repeat what you just said?
Yeah. So, does there exist any action that God has the power to do, but that he wouldn't possibly do?
Any action that God has the power to do, but he wouldn't possibly do. But he wouldn't possibly do.
Yeah. Which is a thing that he's never going to do.
That's a really good question. I'm not sure. But can you continue if he's like
sure, yeah. So that's fine. So the way the argument, and it sounds like we're probably going to conclude this soon, but the way the argument unfolds, if there's a thing that God has the power to do but that he wouldn't possibly do, then we would say if God has the power to do something, then God could do that thing. 2, if God could do a thing, then he possibly would do the thing. 3, God wouldn't possibly do X. Therefore, there is a thing that God both has, or
And
therefore
what's
God doesn't
that
have the
thing
power to
you
do
think that
X.
God
And then the contradiction is that God both has the power to do X and also doesn't have the power to do X.
to do X? Okay. So what's that thing that you think God possibly wouldn't do?
I think that that's going to be up to you. I suppose. I guess I think that there's like probably like some like evil. My intuition tells me it seems like it's like logically possible that like Jesus comes down on earth and like throws like trash on the ground. That doesn't seem like logically impossible. But like he just wouldn't possibly like he wouldn't do that. He has the power to do that, but
Just
he wouldn't
because
possibly
something is
do
not
that.
logically possible doesn't mean that Jesus Christ would do it. Because obviously there's different categories of possibilities. There's something like psychologically possible things, metaphysically possible things, logically possible things, mathematically possible things. So like, but I think it's psychologically impossible for Jesus Christ to purposely litter or to do anything without a purpose, parable, or meaning from the sacred scriptures. So yeah.
Sure. So, but I feel like that would satisfy the criteria. I feel like Jesus has the power to litter, but he wouldn't possibly litter.
Bro, do you think littering is evil?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so if you say littering is evil, then Jesus Christ does not have the power to litter, because Jesus Christ does not have the power to do evil.
I guess that's unintuitive to say that Jesus Christ doesn't have the power to litter. Like if you want to say that he wouldn't litter,
It's
that
not
makes
because
sense. I get that. But
the sacred.
he
If
doesn't have the
you're
power
running
to.
off the Christian, if you're running off the Christian framework, the sacred scriptures tell us that Jesus Christ doesn't do anything evil. Hebrews chapter 1, Hebrews chapter 3. And if loitering is evil according to you, which let's just say hypothetically, I agree, then Jesus Christ would not do this thing. It would be logically consistent, psychologically consistent, and scripturally consistent.
Right. Veritas, correct me if I'm wrong. This just sounds like the Epicurus paradox.
Brother, I'm not familiar with that paradox. I think I know it if you say it.
Basically, can God create a rock that he himself can't move?
Oh, that
right?
one. Yeah.
So in some possible world, could he make it? Sure. Some possible world, can he not move it? Sure. But if he can't do it, then he's not powerful. But if he can't make the rock, he's not powerful. Right. So that's what I'm saying. This just sounds like the Epicurus paradox.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I'm so sorry, guys, Christians. I love you so much, but I want to go sleep.
Yeah, good job, bro. Yeah, hey, Breeders, good job, bro. The only thing
love you,
is,
brother.
like, it's tough to engage.
This was a great conversation. I really appreciate it. I'll drop you a follow.
All right, thank
It
you.
was. The only thing, Breeders, like, you're getting confused with the paradox, like, because you were using the possible world. I wouldn't do that with God, right? Because in our paradigm, if he were to do it in the other world, that would actually be a contradiction because he doesn't do it here. Now you have him one thing in another world, right? And especially if he does it in another world, that means a restriction was lifted for him to do so, and now God is limited. That's the only problem with the paradox. That's why I wouldn't have accepted. You could have just talked about it here. Can God do it here?
No, because I think God, like in every possible world, would never be able to do anything evil. So anything you try to point at, that's the thing. That's why, like anything you try to point at that's evil, I'll just say it's not possible for God to do it because God cannot do evil. If God could do evil, he wouldn't be God. It would be an imperfection in him.
So one thing that I'd like to correct, it's not the Epicurean paradox. If memory serves, I think it's like the Tugma paradox.
Oh, okay.
The one I'm thinking of is the Epicurean. The one about
It's
specifically,
probably
it's
different
specifically
paradigm.
referring to the stone. God can make an immovable stone that He Himself can't move. If He can't make the stone, He's limited and therefore not all powerful. Therefore, He's not God. If He can't, if He can make the stone but He can't move it, He's not all powerful. Therefore, He's not God.
Yeah,
That's the Epicurus paradox.
it's been debunked so many times.
Yeah.
It's not even a good argument.
The Epicurean paradox I thought was just like the classic problem of evil.
Sorry, someone asked me a
Well, I
question.
suppose you can modify it and just swap evil in there with this instead of a stone, but the whole point is that it follows, that structure.
So,
the Epicurean paradox is the problem of evil. You're conflating them. You're talking about the omnipotence paradox.
But
yeah.
the one I'm thinking of is the one about the stone. That's the Epicurean paradox.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I have
The
a
one about
specific
the
outline
stone
of
is
it.
more of like a contemporary. Is it not like? Is it not? It's not as ancient.
Wait, hold on.
Is it?
I'm sorry. Oh my god. Fucking love Eric.
Okay. No, you're right. Thank you for correcting me, sir. Yeah, it does refer to evil. So, but I guess maybe I've just heard people swap it out with the stone. Maybe I mixed that up. Thank you for
No,
correcting me.
that's the omnipotence paradox. It's a different paradox. They might be mislabeling it, but
Okay, yeah, my mistake. Sorry about that. Thank you for correcting me.
no problem.
But yeah, all right. See you guys later, man. Love you guys.
Yeah, thanks for discussing. All right, I'm probably heading out too, but I appreciate everyone. Thanks for having me on.
No problem.
Good job, bro.
Have a good one.
Yep, you too.
Okay.
God bless.
Veritas needs to stop debating.
What? I knew you was finna say something, bro.
He got cooked by a Muslim like not even a week ago.
Good, but I mean, he kind of fell short when he kind of possible.
Man's got philosopher in his bio and doesn't know what the Epicurean paradox is.
Okay. Well, and then in his defense, though, I guess I misrepresented it because I swapped out the variable.
Well, if he's really a philosopher, he would know that and he would have provided the correction. Okay, I'm not here to.
Yeah, I know. I saw you in the comments and I was like, oh no.
Dude, Ian is the biggest white belt. It's insane. Like, he's a white belt, and it's insane how he has this much clout. Like, it's
because he does like
absolutely
edgy, cringe backgrounds and is just a rage baiter.
Well, and it's just
pretty annoying.
It's very popular because, like, I debate abortion quite a lot. And I can tell you right now, people, when you do enough of like giving them moral prescriptions and this and that, once people get to a certain point where they realize they may not be as good as they thought they were, because nobody likes to think of themselves as being bad or sinful, right? Then I think people, out of some semblance of trying to preserve their selfishness, will seek anyone or the teachings of anything. So I think that the downside to us trying to preach truth or tell the truth or talk about God is that they will naturally seek to hold on to their selfishness, which could mean latching on to people who spread,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I heard someone call me a white belt. PRK, what's the argument for God's existence?
Yeah, what type of argument?
Hey, y'all better make this quick. Folks got jobs.
Oh, trust me, it'll be quick.
Yeah, my argument for God's existence is pretty simple. It's the fact that when we're talking about the why questions about reality, not how things work, but why things work, we're both going to be in a faith position in which we're going to say that either it's God or not. I have no clue in how you have some upper hand here saying that your position of atheism is better than mine.
Yeah, because when we look to different factors, they're decisively in favor of atheism, specifically the problem of evil.
Like what?
Like evil. Keep up.
Problem of evil is almost a defunct argument completely in academic philosophy. So try
That's
that.
the funniest thing I've ever heard.
Okay, so can you present your argument?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Premise one: if God exists, then He is all powerful and all good. Premise two: if God is all good, then He would create the most good world. Premise three: that means that the world is the most good world. Premise four: the world is not the most good world.
I disagree with premise 4.
Gotcha. So the sub point for premise 4, the first sub point for premise 4 is going to be that if there is an unnecessary evil in the world, then it is not the most good world. The second sub point is going to be
disagree with that premise.
That if there is, so you think the world wouldn't be better if there wasn't unnecessary evil?
Not necessarily, no. Could you do an argument for that?
So you think
you're arguing, Ian? You're arguing
you have
for
an argument for that,
and I understand like the desire to like dogpile, right? But just to be
we don't have
clear,
to dogpile.
I don't care. You were just up here. You were just
we
up
don't
here
have
for
to
hours. I'll dogpile if I
just
want.
to wait. I'm so sorry.
We
Just
don't
to
have
be
to
clear,
dogpile.
you don't think the world would be a better place, a more good place, if there was less evil?
You're
what was
you're
your premise?
presupposing a deterministic God, and you're not understanding that we are secondary causes.
None of that means anything. I don't think you even know what that means.
Oh god.
Yeah, do you know what higher order goods are?
Yeah, I'm aware of higher order goods, but those would be necessary evils. We're talking unnecessary evils.
Okay, great. So make your argument for why unnecessary evils are incompatible with the holy God. Please go.
Yeah, so the argument is because God would be goodness maximizing, and an unnecessary evil, that is an evil
That's
that
not
can
an
be
argument. That's
eliminated.
just two claims stacked on each other. Please make an argument.
Please make an argument.
Yeah,
What's your
yeah.
standard
Wait,
for good?
big dog.
What's your
Big
standard
dog.
for
You
good,
didn't lay
Ian?
out a single premise.
What's your standard for good, Ian?
Oh, you don't want to run that one. That one's too easy.
Oh no.
My standard for good is empathy. Good question.
Oh, so it's personal preference.
No. Wait, did I say personal preference?
No,
you have your script and you're too stupid to deviate from it.
Your empathy is a subjective standard, is it not?
No, it's not.
It's dependent on okay, define subjective. Then.
Yeah, it's also a transcendental standard. It's necessarily presupposed in all moral dialogues.
Yeah, presupposing. Okay.
Yeah, so you haven't made an argument for your sub premise there that.
Okay, yeah, sure. So premise one, God is good maximizing and evil minimizing. Premise two, if God is good maximizing and evil minimizing, then God would minimize evil by eliminating unnecessary evil.
Okay, I disagree with that premise that you just said.
So how does having... Okay, that's fine. We can just do like a mathematical argument for this. So we're going to be like comparing the amounts of evil. The claim specifically that we're proving is that world with evil. So we have world plus unnecessary evil. Where the unnecessary evil exists. That is, the unnecessary evil is a value that is greater than 1.
There is no ontology to evil.
Buddy, one person at a time. So, and then we have, or just the world. World. Okay. I'll actually write this out. I think that'll be helpful. Because we can like literally do the math. All right. So we'll do necessary evil, and then we have unnecessary evil, and all we need to prove is that this is greater than the world with just the necessary evil. Do we agree that this is that the world with the necessary evil plus unnecessary evil is going to have more evil than the world with just the necessary evil? Do we agree with this?
No, I disagree with that.
Oh, okay, so and in this world where we have where this necessary evil, we agree that necessary evils exist, right?
Yeah, I would say so. It depends on who you're talking to. Sure.
Yep. So necessary evils are greater than 0, and then we agree that unnecessary evils exist, right?
Yeah.
Sure. So then we have it that unnecessary evils are greater than 0. These are our conditions. So we're going to do something really cool. We're going to subtract the necessary evils from both sides, and we are left with unnecessary evils are greater than 0. Which, oh fuck, is one of the starting conditions. Oh no, we just proved it.
What are you doing here?
We proved the initial thing. That's a tragedy.
What are you talking about?
So because we agree that unnecessary evils exist and necessary evils exist, the thing that we're trying to prove is that necessary evils plus unnecessary evils is going to yield more evil than just necessary evils alone. So we can cross out the necessary evil on both sides.
Well, what? Nobody agreed to any of that. I didn't agree with
You
this
agreed
math.
to both of these.
What are you talking
And you agreed
about?
to the setup. You're gaslighting Gary.
How am I?
Oh my god, bro is a
agreed
professional
with you
gaslighter. Well, you're calling me a white belt motherfucker. You're not even in the dojo.
Ian, I just
you're
said
so
I don't
low on the. You're
hold
so
up,
low
bro.
tier that
Hold-
you're
I'm
not
gonna
even
have to
on the
mute
fuck.
you. I just said I don't agree with you, bro. Come
Okay,
on.
cool. Yeah, we'll
I
go through
literally
this.
just said I don't agree with
Yeah,
whatever
let's go. Let's
bullshit
go.
you
Let's
did
go through
have.
these. Let's go through these one more time.
No, I didn't. Somebody
Yeah,
said I
let's
agreed, I don't.
let's take it from the top. Let's take it from the top. So, do we agree that unnecessary evils exist?
Oh my goodness.
He's not going to want to engage this one.
I said unnecessary evils exist and necessary evils exist.
Yep. So unnecessary evils exist. So we're going to represent that mathematically as just unnecessary evils are greater than zero. That is, there is more than none unnecessary evils. You agree with this?
Dude, you said unnecessary and necessary evils, right?
So yeah, we're just going one step at a time. So you
No, I
agree
don't
that
agree with this.
Well, so then unnecessary evils don't exist?
I said unnecessary evils exist. How does me saying unnecessary evils exist mean that I agree with what you're saying?
Because this is what I'm saying. Unnecessary evils. There is more than none unnecessary evils. There is an amount of unnecessary evil that is greater than zero.
So what he's saying is he's saying that if you agree there are unnecessary evils, then it has at least a value higher than zero, zero being nothing. So that means you have to accept that there is unnecessary evils, which is above zero.
Yeah,
You
sure.
agree that it exists.
I agree with that, yes.
Yep, perfect. So then, and you agree that necessary evils exist, right? So we have the same thing. Necessary evils are greater than zero.
Yeah.
So then we're going to set out to prove the claim that the amount of necessary evils with the amount of unnecessary evils is greater than just the amount of necessary evils. Yeah, do you understand?
What the heck are you talking about?
Correct characterization of
This
the
is
problem?
just so dumb. This is actually stupid. For anybody who's agreeing with this is insane.
Buddy, that shit was not rhetorical. This has been like the least rhetorical thing of your entire life.
Yeah,
actually, it might be the most rhetorical thing.
Okay.
And maybe it's just downhill from here. But do you agree or disagree with this? That this is a correct characterization of this?
Yeah, I completely disagree with whatever you've written here.
Do you even understand what I've written?
Yeah, I just want a premise-based argument, and what you've written is just nonsense, right?
Okay.
I don't. You know what? I'll answer you, Ian. I don't understand what you've written because it's nonsense.
Yep. Okay. So, premise 1, unnecessary evils are greater than zero. Premise 2, necessary evils are greater than zero. Conclusion: the necessary evils plus the unnecessary evils are greater than just the necessary evils alone.
Again, this is just nonsense.
It's not.
So if you want to, so you think academic?
Wait. Do you
what you're doing?
Yes, I do, and I'm actually quite certain that academic philosophers. In fact, yeah. I'll pull up.
Do you have any example of any person using what you're using right now?
Do you mean by what I'm using? You mean addition?
No, I'm not talking about addition. I'm talking about the problem of evil, how you're constructing it. Would anybody use this as an example for it?
Do you mean like literally like logic like a second grader could follow along with?
Well, math like you're saying in this instance. Yeah, you think any other person is using this as an example?
That is arithmetic. Arithmetic is basic.
Yeah, Tiger, I have no clue what you or this guy is talking about because it makes no sense.
Okay, I'm just trying to help you out.
I'm genuinely being honest. It literally
probably nothing makes sense to you. Like to be honest, like if you don't get this, like you. It's like kind of unbelievable to me that you were even able to find the guest request button at all.
Hey man, I'm just gonna let you talk to make yourself feel more bad about yourself than you probably should.
Do you think that talking to you makes me feel bad about myself? Oh my God.
Because
I like
nonsense,
crush kids
right?
like you for self-esteem. It's like free.
This is just nonsense. So yeah, go ahead, keep on speaking.
Wait, so you think? Okay, wait. If I crossed out the necessary evil on both sides of the equation, are you following along with the arithmetic that allows us to do that?
Yeah, this makes sense to me. I don't know, okay, you got to be honest here, bro.
No, it absolutely doesn't make any sense because he's just saying he's putting this. What are you talking about? How does this make sense?
Okay.
Yeah, wait, would this make more sense?
Can anybody tell me how this makes sense?
Let me try to put it some this way. Okay, so if you had 1 and then -1 and you added them together, what would you get?
1 and -1, you get 0.
Right. So what he's essentially doing, though, is he's saying that he's giving them each a value greater than 0. So he's saying that they are something. And so he's basically showing you that when you cross out the necessary, when you're just doing necessary evil.
Yeah. Oh, so necessary evil.
Without necessary
when we cross out
evils,
the
you just have.
necessary,
He's saying without necessary evils, you have unnecessary evils, and you.
Yeah. So he's saying what remains
and has
is
said
unnecessary
you guys
evil.
both think that this is actually logically.
Well, no,
I don't. Like I said,
right? You guys sound like idiots as well.
Well, Pierre,
so
I would take a different approach to this.
The premise that you want to reject is that unnecessary evils exist. That's the intelligent premise to reject. You should say, no, there are no unnecessary evils in the world. You should be rejecting this one.
Yeah, you accepted that premise like 4 times. So if you're gonna,
the only premise I accepted was that necessary and unnecessary evils exist.
Yes.
Exactly.
So
there's no exactly from that.
That gives them each a value higher than 0.
Yeah.
So he's using 1 to represent each of them.
Okay, great.
So how are you not?
What's the point?
In any sense? Like,
what's the point?
The point is he's showing you that because you're rejecting, right, what he's concluding to, you're contradicting your acceptance of the premise, right? So if you accept premise 1 as he presented, when he comes down to C, as he's written down in front
this isn't a premise that I've accepted.
Yes, sir. You can see it, bro.
It's just arithmetic. What are you talking about?
You accepted the first premise that unnecessary evil exists, right?
I accepted.
Maybe I can give. Maybe we can,
none of this makes sense, dude.
Maybe we can prime him for it. Maybe we can like help him out here. So do you agree that 2 is greater than 0?
Yeah.
Do you agree that 3 is greater than 0?
Yes.
So then we'll attempt to prove 3 plus 2 is greater than 3. So then we'll cross out the 3's on both sides, and we're left with 2 is greater than 0. Are you following along? Did that make sense?
Yeah, I'm following along. You want to put this into a syllogism of sorts or not?
Yeah. I literally already did.
Yeah. The syllogism.
Ian, I have a syllogism for you.
Like this is absolutely absurd. The fact that Hassad and Tony are agreeing.
Bro, as long as we can all agree that PRK deserves to be put down like a dog.
Okay, I'm not agreeing. I would have taken a different approach to this. You're the one that agreed, and we're just showing you that because of your agreement, you've kind of gotten yourself into a conundrum here.
I totally
because of the agreement that unnecessary evils exist.
If you
there is no ontology to evil. It is a privation of good. Next.
Like what I have to. So by agreeing evil exists. So if I said evil doesn't exist or whatever, you guys think that's cool? No, dude. Like I could say evil exists. Whatever he's saying, it just makes no sense.
Evil doesn't exist. It's a privation of good. It's only in reference to the lack of good.
What's the argument for that?
Okay, just as light.
That's an analogy. That's the argument.
So within our paradigm, God created the world good. We are secondary causes. We moved away from the will of God, and death, decay, entropy entered the world.
Oh, what about the dinosaur bones that had cancer on them before the fall of man?
Okay, you're gonna have to actually substantiate that. But I actually have a syllogism because you came in here saying prove. You came in here saying
dinosaur.
You came in here saying prove God to me. So I have a syllogism for you.
Dinosaur. Wait, what the? It's because fuck. I played.
Don't run. Don't run.
No, I'm just trying to pull up the dinosaur.
Yeah, I mean, I asked him for the argument for a syllogism. He brought this math up, and then everybody's
he actually came in saying prove God to me, and then switched it onto you. So he actually didn't even follow his original
No,
Yeah,
it's
okay,
the opposite. This is ridiculous. This is like insane projection. By the way.
All right, Ian. Premise 1: the laws of logic are universal, absolute, and conceptual. Do you agree?
What are the laws of logic specifically that we're referring to?
So we'll just list the three major ones: the law of non-contradiction, the law of excluded middle, and the law of identity.
And what about other ones?
Those are the three main ones.
Oh wait. Also, before we move on, before we pivot away from the dinosaur bones with cancer, can we like look at this bone and acknowledge that there's a dinosaur bone with cancer, which means that your evil argument is nonsense?
I don't care.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's like a W concession. All right, sure.
Okay, premise 1: the laws of logic are universal, absolute, and conceptual.
The laws of logic. What and what?
Universal, absolute, and conceptual.
Universal, absolute, and conceptual. By universal, we mean what?
They govern everything.
They govern everything. And by absolute, we mean what?
Are you just going to be a sophist?
No, I know what, because I know what conceptual means, but I think absolute is like kind of a vague term.
Absolute, that they exist and they are unchanging.
They exist and do not change. Yeah, I would reject that they govern everything because logic is just rules of inference. They're things that like humans do. The universe doesn't operate based on inferences. Our minds operate based on inferences. So I would reject that laws of logic govern anything.
Okay, so the law of identity makes actually like comprehending anything. If there's no law of identity, we can't comprehend the distinctions or separations between anything. So
if there's no law of identity, atoms can still interact with each other.
Wouldn't those atoms have identity?
But that would just be from like the human inferential perspective. Like laws of logic only govern inferences.
So you're rejecting logic. You don't think that it precedes.
Well, I'm saying that logic doesn't. Logic is the way we describe that we humans describe parts of reality. Atoms are not checking in with the law of identity to see what they should and shouldn't do.
Yeah, that's not what logic is, Ian.
Yeah.
Wait. I'm sorry. I take logic to be the rules of valid inference. What do you take logic to be?
Yeah, so logic would be the study of correct reasoning, right? So
are you fucking stupid?
Yeah.
That is like those are literally synonyms for what I just said.
Ian, listen to me, right? So
do you understand? Do you understand that what you said, that both words that you said are literally just synonyms for the both words that I said? Do you acknowledge that?
You're just manifesting, bro. So when you're
I'm so sorry. And I'm so sorry. Do you acknowledge?
Is he running, bro?
Do you acknowledge that both words that you said are just synonyms for the words that I said?
No. So let me explain what I'm gonna say, right?
Oh, wait. So let's go through it. So
my God,
it's the valid, the rules of valid inference, and you said it's the rules of correct reasoning.
Yeah, Ian, are you running?
No, we're going to go through it and recognize that what you said is synonymous to what I said.
Not because you said that it's going to be the observation of everything we describe, correct?
Wait, sorry, what definition did I give?
Yeah, you said it's going to be the inference of how we describe what we observe, right?
No, that's not what I said. Yeah. I said it's the rules of valid inference.
What? You just said observation.
I didn't say observation. I said it's the rules of valid inference. That's my definition
what are you
of logic.
inferring these things from?
That's my definition of logic, is that it's the rules of valid inference.
You said observation.
Not in my definition of logic, I didn't.
Yes,
good try.
Posit another definition for y'all's consideration.
It's the argument for valid inferences.
Please, not this guy, bro. He's gonna mess the whole thing up.
Why is this animal barking out here?
Just let him
real quick, Illis, before you get into it, can I posit another definition for you guys' consideration? I would define logic as order of operations. That could include things like inference. But, the question is like when you say, I don't follow your logic, you're basically saying I don't follow your order of operations, or you're being illogical, meaning the order of operations you're using isn't succinct or coherent, right? So I feel like it's a pretty good universal definition.
I think I'd probably be happier with like one of the two that we gave. I don't think that there's like, I don't know. I mean, correct reasoning is fine. It's the same thing as the definition that I gave.
No, it's not, bro.
It is. My definition is that logic is the rule of valid inferences. Yours is that it's the rules of.
Are you looking for 2D or 3D?
Flip, you said that it was the rules of the inference that you make and distinguish from your observation. This is what you said. It's clear.
My definition is that it's the rules of valid observations.
Okay, you can change
You can. I'm sorry. You can just like watch the clip back.
Yeah, you said observation.
So I want to ask about, like, Ian, do you know that there's logical impossibilities, right?
Sure.
And what classifies?
Well, in a 2D sense. So if I say to you, like, it's impossible for a circle and a square to coexist as a single object, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they have an identity as a circle and a square, right?
So doesn't it seem odd that
this schoolboy girl, because they've been debating. This is like a win-win.
I don't know why. Gosh, Illist, and I'm like from the bottom of my heart sorry, because I actually do want to talk to you. But everyone's trying to like keep you down and instead have like the low tiers like
You're running from me, Ian.
Yeah, they want me to debate this literature. I'm sorry.
with school and I'll just wait.
Ian, you brought up a logical problem of evil argument and you weren't able to substantiate it, right?
You literally looked like the stupidest person.
Ian, you canceled out necessary evils to have
you humiliated yourself worse than if you turned your camera on and just shot all over
Ian, what's 9 times 8?
9 times 8, that's going to be 72.
Okay, great.
Ian,
I literally have a degree in mathematics. Do you want to go math problem for math problem?
Sure, ask me.
Oh yeah, sure. What's the dot product of the matrix 4 2 3 1 times the matrix 2 6 5 2?
Stop running.
Yeah, what's?
Ask me.
You want premise 2?
Basic math question.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm saying because that's all you can do. If we have variable x that's greater than 0 and variable y that's greater than 0,
oh my goodness!
Is the inequality x plus y greater than x?
Stop running, Ian.
Ian, whatever you presented to me was just nonsense, and you're trying to like.
Did you not make it to variables?
Stop running, Ian. Back on track.
Bro, maybe you'll learn about variables next year in like 6th grade.
Let's just let them get back on track, guys. They were having a good
Don't worry about my
dialogue before everybody interjected. I want to hear it, actually. I would like to hear it.
All right, premise 1. The laws of logic are universal, absolute, and conceptual.
I don't think the laws of logic exist insofar as like humans don't exist, because I don't think that inferences are being made absent humans, or at least absent like something with a mind that makes inferences.
What?
Which part of that was confusing?
Laws of logic don't exist. Humans don't exist. Like, what are you?
Well, that's not really what I said. Just absent like minds that make inferences.
That it takes a mind. He's saying that it takes a mind to make those inferences. He's saying they don't physically exist.
So let me go on. Let me go on to premise 2. Premise 2: concepts are mind dependent.
Concepts are mind dependent. Sure.
Okay. Premise 3: universal concepts require a universal mind.
Universal concepts require a universal mind. With universal just being like governs everything.
Yeah. That all encompassing.
That's not true. Platonism would reject this.
Okay, so sub-premise, humans can't generate universal concepts.
But like Platonic forms could be universal concepts.
Okay, you'd have to ground that because there actually is no access to the Platonic form. It's always out of reach, so that's just a good axiom.
No, that's not going to be the case. Insofar as we could just posit that our intuitions have direct access to these via phenomenology.
Direct access, right? So you can ground it?
Yeah, insofar as they would just be objects of direct acquisition. And are you asking for like the grounding of these objects?
Well, you said concepts are mind dependent, right?
Concepts are mind dependent.
You agreed to premise 2, did you not?
That concepts are mind dependent. So
yes.
If we want,
you did. You literally agreed to that.
So, and then your third one is that universal concepts require. So I guess mind. Sure. Wait, let's actually get clear on what we mean by concepts.
Abstracts.
Then no, I don't think abstracts are
immaterial.
Then abstracts then I actually reject premise 2 as well.
On what basis?
On the basis of Platonism.
Wait, schoolboy, he didn't know concepts were abstracts.
Because some people take them to be like the the culmination of percepts, which do require minds.
Yeah, nah, this is true. Bro, PRK, please, bro, just stop.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like, he's like a negative teammate.
Yeah, like, Ian, that's good. I that's cool, bro. I respect that, Ian.
Hey, I respect you too. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but you've been pretty chill.
That's it.
So
you now reject premise 2?
Yeah, after getting like clarification, yeah.
On the grounds of Platonism.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you could reject these from like a Platonist standpoint. Bro is stumped.
No, you're just a waste of time and you're a sophist.
He's never been here before in his dialogue tree. Darth Dawkins didn't expand this part of the dialogue tree. Oh no.
Yeah. So, Ian, would you say that all conceptual worlds are grounded by an inherent rationality?
Are conceptual morals grounded by...
Worlds, not morals, worlds.
Oh, worlds.
Possible worlds.
Conceptual possible worlds. I don't have an opinion on what grounds possible worlds. I guess I'm agnostic to it.
Well, it's going to be what's logically possible, right?
Sure. I mean, if certainly if there's like only one thing that necessarily could, I mean, I'm not sure. At that point, I'd be left with either the option of rejecting possible worlds or accepting that it's God if you can prove that.
I mean, all I'm saying is that I don't think it's possible for a possible world to have a squared circle in it, right?
Sure, yeah, that there's like necessarily not one, but
there's necessary impossibilities, correct?
There's necessary impossibilities.
Yeah.
Insofar as there's like things that can't be, sure.
Yeah, okay. So why is it the case that the universe comports with these impossibilities at the same rate my mind does?
It's just going to come down to the actual structures that underlie reality.
So do those structures require unification?
What do you mean?
Well, it seems that a single point in time is an anchor for all reason, or a single point for an anchor of all reason.
I'm not really sure I know what that means.
Well, when you're saying there's structures underpinning reality, well, wouldn't those structures be like a computer?
I don't see why they would be.
Well, because what's conceptually possible mirrors what's nomologically possible.
Conceptually possible mirrors what's logically... Why would that mean that reality is a computer?
Possible. Yeah. So it's very odd that the fundamental structures of concepts are the same fundamental structures that underpin the universe.
Oh, I actually disagree with this.
If concepts are mind-dependent processes, why wouldn't the universe be a mind-dependent process?
So, okay, wait, I actually reject that the things that are conceptually possible are the things that are logically possible. I can conceive of things that are logically possible. And
you just lost the debate.
Oh, do you want the argument?
Yes, I would.
Yeah, so we can imagine like a square circle fitting through a square circle hole in the wall.
No, I can't. I
absolutely can.
So if a circle is defined as a set of infinite points equidistant from the center point, how is that compatible with the 4 straight lines?
Just so it's the key condition is that it's like a hypothetical that if squared circles exist, then they would fit in carve-outs that are square circle
but
shaped.
It's not a question of if they exist. I'm saying it's not possible for them to exist.
Oh, then it's just vacuously true.
It's not vacuously true.
I'm sorry, what do you take a vacuous truth to be?
If I have green pennies in my pocket,
the form of a vacuous truth, not an example.
Yeah, vacuous truth is this. All of the pockets in my pennies.
I don't want an example, I want a form.
Yeah, it's just going to be, I guess you could say a 2D law of non-contradiction would be.
What's the form of a vacuous truth? Go ahead.
Yeah, P and not P, therefore X.
P and not P, therefore X?
Yeah, law of non-contradiction in a classic 2D sense leads to any conclusion that's vacuous in nature.
Oh, and so you deny that saying that if squared circles exist...
It's a 2D contradiction, yeah.
Oh, so then it is vacuously true. I'm glad we arrived at this conclusion together.
No, because I interpret contradictions differently. I'm a diatheist, right?
How do you interpret them?
Well, basically, I view contradictions to be the driver of reality. The fact that being in its infinite immediacy is infinitely indeterminate means that it's logically equivalent to nothing. But nothing in its purest vacuity contains some determinacy, which leads the result to be somewhere between being and nothing, which is becoming. Therefore, the fundamental process that drives the universe as a process of becoming is the tension within the 2D law of non-contradiction, that fundamental instability.
So
why I don't really care about whatever contradiction absurdity you're pointing out.
No, I'm not pointing out like a contradictory absurdity. All I'm saying, what I'm pointing out is that the conditional that starts with if squared circles exist, then they would be able to fit into square circle.
Yeah, I mean you're begging the question. If you're just presupposing.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can I just like finish the point that I'm trying to make?
Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So what you've laid out as the form of a contradiction or of a vacuous truth is that not P and P yields X. That if these conditions are met, then that's a vacuous truth.
Yeah, this is the principle of explosion.
Yeah. Yep. So what I'm demonstrating is that if a squared circle exists, then it would fit into a squared circle carve out. You could fit it into like a squared circle shape in the wall. That this is going to have the same form as a vacuous truth. Therefore, you'd be incorrect when you say that it isn't a vacuous truth.
Because what you're doing is you're assuming, you're begging the question essentially. You're assuming the truth value of the content within the antecedent. So if I say to you, if up down stairs exist, like I don't know, something that's just an obvious contradiction. Well, I don't have the ability to question whether it's possible for this thing to exist, even conceptually, because you're just baking in the existence within the proposition. So if you say if square circles exist, then I'm going to stop you at that if statement because it is necessarily impossible for square circles to exist. It is not possible in the nomological sphere or in the logical sphere, or modality, I guess you could say.
So then maybe we could expand it just slightly and say we have like a shape X. X is a square and X is not a square. If the shape existed, then it would be the case that X could fit through X-shaped carve-outs.
You're saying nothing. All you're saying is if X is a square and it's not a square, what does that mean?
Oh, so it would be a vacuous truth. So then you would have to acknowledge that it's true, that the conditional itself is true.
Okay.
Perfect. Double.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
It's not,
cool.
Look. I can say. Do you know the difference between soundness and validity?
Yeah, of course. So validity just means that it follows a valid inference rule, whereas soundness is that it's a valid inference rule and the premises are true.
Yeah. So if I say that I can have a valid and unsound argument, would you agree with that?
A valid and unsound argument, sure. Like if it follows a valid inference rule, but the premises are false, sure.
Or if I just say something like, we're going to assume that humanity needs cheese for some dire reason.
Sure.
And we're going to assume that the moon is made of cheese. Well, I can make an argument that humanity should go, if humanity needs cheese, they should go mine cheese on the moon. But that doesn't tell me anything about, I don't know, what's sound in this argument. So obviously the moon's not made of cheese, so the argument would be an absurdity. What you're saying is you're assuming truth value to a necessarily untrue premise. You're baking in soundness in your necessarily unsound argument.
So are vacuous truths true?
Vacuous truths are trivial. They're irrelevant to this point.
Are vacuous truths true?
Sure, yeah.
Perfect. So then they do have a truth value.
Okay, so you're telling me that vacuous, what about a squared circle existing conceptually as a vacuous truth?
Wait, you already acknowledged that it is a vacuous
truth. I know that
you already conceded on this point.
Exist. I'm not saying that a squared circle leads to a vacuous truth. That doesn't follow.
But
so
do you acknowledge that the conditional that I set up is a vacuous truth?
No, that's not a vacuous truth.
Oh.
Because you're presupposing the truth value in the first premise.
So there's not a contradiction in a squared circle.
Like transcendentalists, when they assume that when one of the axioms is that God exists, right? You're making the same type of mistake.
So wait, I just want to be clear. So there's not a contradiction within like a squared circle?
No, the squared circle can't exist in a 2D sense because of the contradiction.
So, but there is a contradiction.
Definitionally,
There is a wait. So there is a P and not P present within it. Is that correct?
yes, in a 2D sense.
Perfect. So then it fits the definition of a vacuous truth. You acknowledge that.
Okay, so if I say to you, there's a 2D sense and a 3D sense in logic, what do you take that to mean?
I'm not too sure. I'm not familiar with the
Okay,
phrase.
so you're just not tracking the point then.
Yeah, go ahead and explain it.
Yeah,
I suspect it's going to have no bearing.
Look, dude, what's true to me in a 2D sense is trivial ultimately, because truth to me is a process that humanity is directed towards that will happen at some point in time in the future. Truth to me, big T truth is just going to be the concept of the universe in its entirety, free of contradiction in both 2D and 3D modalities. So if you're going to ask me what's big T truth, that's what I'm concerned about. I don't really care about trivial truths because, well, trivial truths don't have, they're not eternal.
This is gibberish. None of this means anything.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that you don't know much about philosophy, and it shows.
This is no. This is like
this
is like big G gibberish. Like what the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, I see. So you're just unread on philosophy, and because you don't know.
Wait, sorry. Are your theorists like Graham?
Aren't you supposed to be? Aren't you supposed to be like an educated, well-read?
Is this Hegel? Like who are your
theorists? Of course it's Hegel. I'm a neo-Hegelian. Yes.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah. I don't know. I skipped Hegel because it's nonsense.
Well, of course you did because it's difficult and you don't have the intellectual capacity.
No, I'm just not interested in things that are nonsensical.
Oh, I see. So you don't have the intellectual capacity to read philosophy, so you just discredit it without.
No, I skipped all the bad philosophy.
Well, I don't
jumped straight into the analytic philosophy.
Wait, what's bad about Hegelian philosophy?
It's just that it's like nonsensical. It's not applicable.
Wait, can you tell me what's nonsensical about it?
Yeah, just that there are no arguments.
Okay, so you're just conceding that you're too stupid to read Hegel.
No, is that what I said?
Well, it sounds like
I prefer it when my philosophers argue for their positions.
Well, I prefer complex philosophy that makes sense. You prefer pop philosophy nonsense that you.
No, I prefer analytic philosophy that's like pretty clear on their language.
Okay, so can you name 3 analytic philosophers?
Yeah, it's going to be Graham Oppie, Michael Humer, and then
you name real analytic philosophers that came after Hegel, which were
real. Which of who I named isn't
Bertrand
a real
Russell, Frege, Gödel. Those are the names I'm looking for because Hegel inspired.
Stop. Which
you don't know
philosopher
shit.
that I named? Which philosopher
they're
that
modern
I named
analytic
isn't an analytic philosopher?
Yeah, they're modern analytic philosophers, but you just don't know anything about analytic philosophy if those are the first 3 names that came to your mind. Because Hegel
do you acknowledge that I did?
Ian, I'm going to take you to class right now, okay? Hegel was
I don't know why you're trying to get a victory speech right now. You're getting slammed.
Calm down, slow boy. Yeah, relax.
Damn,
Hegel was part of the rationalist
tradition. Was not rhetorical.
Yeah, okay, slow boy, relax. Hegel was part of the rationalist tradition.
That was still not rhetorical.
That's fantastic. You can say that all you want, right?
I'm going to.
Keep doing it. Keep interrupting me. It makes you look really educated.
Yeah, I know it does. Man, you're like just
sure does.
Get to the substance. Don't be careless.
Well, I'm trying, but you keep interrupting me because you're a dog barking at me right now.
Woof, woof, woof.
Yeah, I know. You done?
Yeah, go for it.
You're gonna sit and muzzle yourself?
Yeah, I give you. Oh gosh, only if you put a collar on.
So basically, Hegel was part of the rationalist tradition of German.
I'm aware.
Yeah. Do you know that?
Yeah, I'm aware. Yep.
Okay, so do you understand what the rationalists did to philosophy after Hegel, or what happened in philosophy after Hegel? Do you know
what happened in philosophy?
Yeah, when he passed away in 1860, the next 50 years was the best analytic philosophy ever done because of his contributions to logic, mainly his book Science of Logic, which teaches people to interpret logic differently and spawn the entire field of dialetheism. In fact, feedback loops and modern LLMs are a product of Hegelian thought. So for you to say it's incomprehensible and it's nonsense, you're just confused and you just don't know anything about philosophy.
Oh, if you think large language models are a product of this,
I'm talking about feedback loops. It's a feature.
Yeah. If you think feedback loops are a process of this, then you're just going to be deeply confused about the history of mathematics. Matrices, which are the underpinnings of all of the things that you just mentioned, existed long before.
And what
underpins
the basis for all the arguments for the existence
of basis. Wait, sorry, I understand you want to pivot away because you're just wrong shit, and you don't want to be held to account.
You're just against the wall because you actually talk to someone who actually knows their shit.
Fuck up. Hold on.
You're just a dumbass.
Hold on. Wait, do you want the response?
And you're a political.
Do you want the response?
Please go ahead. Tell me how matrices.
Are you interested?
Yes, I am. Tell me how matrices are primary to logic.
Oh, they're primary to LLMs and they're primary to
I know that.
groups.
LLM is just an overzealous what?
You use the term big dog.
Yeah, because it's a feature. It's a part of LLMs.
Yeah.
Feedback loops are part of it. I don't care about the fucking
Yes, the
LLMs.
foundation of LLMs.
What is your point with this? Are you
These
just barking
existed.
about
Wait,
LLMs?
and I understand. You're upset because you got caught in a lie. I get
What
it.
did I get caught
I've
in a
been
lie in?
there. On saying that they were a primary contribution to LLMs, that's not true.
I said feedback loops are a part. Probably a small
Feedback
part.
loops existed long before 1880.
Yes, I know. And I used it as an example.
Perfect. Then Hegel didn't contribute shit. You're one example.
So do you understand the concept? How old is the concept of a feedback loop?
Do you want like the full?
Yes,
so
I know
the
the
existence
history
of like
math
a
and
feedback
philosophy.
loop at all. Feedback loops have
You're
always
obviously
existed, but
got
the
a
concept
BA
of the
from some
feedback
shitty
loop.
university.
If that's what you're interested
TikTok
in,
debate.
is a.
But you're not smart, Ian.
Oh,
You're
I mean, if you want to,
officer.
you want to go through like college accomplishments because I think
I'm a master's student at McGill. What do you?
Yeah, I was ranked third in the nation in debate.
That's nice. I'm a master's student at a global top 15 university, and I do geopolitical strategic.
Damn, were you not smart
published
enough to
in
get into
4
the
journals?
PhD program? Did you fumble the ball on the PhD program interviews?
No, I'm doing a professional master's because I want money.
Gotcha. Well,
You know what a professional master's is, Ian?
I was super
What was
interested in
your
money,
CGPA?
so I
Because mine
skipped
was-
the.
Ian,
I
my
was lucky enough
CGPA
to
was
skip the
3.94,
process of getting a master's,
and I could have
instead just
gone
got a
to
double
Yale
major in
for
math
law.
and computer science.
Ian, I could have gone to Yale for law. My GPA was elite. And
I dropped out. I dropped out of
college.
college. I dropped out of college.
And
after
this
4 weeks,
dumbass is up here flexing on people with his political officer rants and his stupid, uninformed philosophy. And he acts like he's the smartest guy on the app, but really he's just a dumbass.
Damn, that shit was not rhetorical, big dog.
Well, you can keep saying that, but I think you've embarrassed yourself enough. I don't even need
No, I think I've done quite well in this conversation. I just don't know why you're trying to give a victory speech. You've gotten torn in this entire
So
dialect.
Ian, do you want to continue to defend Platonic forms?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
All right. So premise
Thank
one:
you,
human,
schoolboy.
human beings exist entirely.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Illust. What date did you say Hegel died?
It was 18.
Ian, stop running.
1860?
Yeah, 1860s, somewhere around there.
Ian, stop
Wait,
running.
and I'm
1862, if my memory serves me correctly. But
Oh, because you said the 50 years after Hegel, but you're not even sure when Hegel
the
died.
next 50 years, yeah, because when did Frege do the synthetic analytic divide? When did he write about that?
Wait, so I don't know if you're
It was
aware of this.
1899, right?
Oh,
And then when did Bertrand
dude,
Russell?
because Hegel
When
died
did Bertrand
in
Russell
1831.
write Principia
Wait,
Mathematica?
are you aware that Hegel died in 1831, which means
Okay,
that the
my
next
bad.
50 years didn't contain a goddamn
Sorry,
thing?
70 years.
Oh,
Philosophy takes a long
W
time.
walk back, W concession.
Okay, yeah, man.
Let's get a big W for the comment section for that concession.
Does that help your argument at all, Ian?
Yeah, well, I mean, it helps.
Or are you
it helps
just
with
grasping
your
at straws?
You're like the dumbest person.
Ian, do you want to stop running from the argument I'm trying to?
Oh, I would. I mean, I've had enough fun slamming
This is
illustrators.
embarrassing. Bro, if you think that like
can you imagine like grandstanding and then you're just like straight up wrong about the thing that you're grandstanding about?
Yeah, man. Okay, I got a historical fact wrong. My bad. Doesn't affect the argument.
Yeah, well, you were literally, your argument was literally a historical argument.
Is that a concession, Ian?
Yeah, it is a concession.
It's not a historical argument. The point still stands. It's just instead of 50,
you were literally citing his historical
this
influence,
slow boy
and you got the
is like
historical
the only
backdrop.
win he's gotten
Illust
in
philosophy,
conversation.
more like illust failures.
Yeah, that's nice, man. The only win this guy's gotten from this conversation is a historical factoid that he tried to.
Yeah, and your argument was a historical
Okay, you know what?
argument.
I was off by 20 years.
Hey, can we?
I was off by 20 years.
Hey, stop. It's the host. Can we please get to a topic about some substance? Thank you for your accolades, but it really doesn't add anything to the conversation.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that basically, if the whole point is that I have to change the premise I made from 50 to 70 years, okay.
And I'm so sorry.
Fine, let it go.
Oh,
Get to something
fuck,
of
yeah.
substance.
Yeah.
Y'all got like a few more.
That's a dumbass.
Ian, are you a Platonist?
I'll defend Platonism. Why not?
All right. Premise one: human beings exist entirely within space-time.
Sure. What's the argument for that?
I'm not doing this with you. Premise two: if there exist any abstract mathematical objects.
Bro, oh gosh, bro, does not have the
you're a
philosophical
sophist and you just run
grind.
from every argument. You're a coward.
Oh no. Okay. Are you sure you want to do this?
All you do is, what's your argument for that? You're a one-trick pony, dude.
Well, what's your argument for that? Is a pretty important question in philosophy.
Okay, so I could just do that and literally just filibuster and do that to every argument that you make, and we would get nowhere.
You should never teach anyone philosophy. Okay, you don't know it. So,
I'm not gonna take philosophy advice from you. You got slammed.
You really should.
I'm not. And listen. I'm just not gonna take debate advice from you. You did terrible in this discussion.
Have I? Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, you embarrassed yourself.
I'm red in the face right now.
This is bad.
Gosh, good boy.
I mean, come on, Ian. Just the fact that you're even having this conversation means that there are certain things that you just grant or as a given. So it just seems like forestalling when you do something like that.
So because from the Platonist view, you could totally hold the perspective that you have like some type of soul, which would not exist within like time or space.
So if you're a Platonist, where's the world of the forms?
Yeah,
where's the world of the forms is immanent within the things that exist.
Okay, what's the form of the good?
What's the form of the good? The good is the one. Good question.
Oh, so you believe in God now?
No, because
That's
God
crazy.
has a mind and the forms do not. Good question.
Himself all over the place.
Wait, what's the contradiction? What's the P and not P? Could you present it?
The form of the good is going to be classically understood as Plato.
Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, and I'm so sorry because I just asked for the P and
Well,
not
unless
P.
you're doing a performative contradiction.
What's the? Oh, I'm sorry. And do you take actions?
Well, on one hand, you said that God
Do you
does
take
exist.
actions to be propositional?
On the other hand, you're arguing for Plato.
Do you take actions to be propositional?
Yeah, you're just doing a performative contradiction.
So wait. So I got a question for you. If actions are propositional,
Yeah, if I'm swimming and I say I'm not swimming, that's a performative
actions are
contradiction.
propositional, then when I eat a hamburger, is that true or false?
This guy is just
Is eating a hamburger true or false, Illist?
He's a waste of time.
I know he is. Like this
Eating
is
a
just-
hamburger,
This
true or
guy
false?
thinks I'm stupid. It's embarrassing.
Is eating a hamburger true or false? Answer the question.
Eating a hamburger, yeah, it's an action. You're either eating it or you're not.
But is it the action of eating a
The guy
hamburger?
didn't even get his non-propositional.
Is the
content.
action of eating a hamburger
I
true
mean,
or
if you want
false?
non-propositional content, you would say something like,
Is
dog
no.
walk.
Is the action of eating a hamburger, the action of itself of eating a hamburger, is that action true or false? When you eat a hamburger, is it true or false?
If just eating hamburger,
It's contingent on the context.
No, that's obvious. That's non-propositional. I guess.
Yeah, so we can conclude that actions aren't propositions, which means that we can't derive a contradiction.
Yeah,
from
that's why I said it's
insofar as
contingent
performances
on
are
the
actions,
context.
Dumb
actions are
fuck.
propositions.
Dumb fuck. Remember when I said if I'm
Calm
swimming?
down, you're getting mad.
It's
No,
contingent on the
you're not
context.
listening to
Bro,
the
you're getting
words. I already
emotional.
said.
God, and you're like, the
Ian,
tone of your
Ian,
voice is rising,
Ian.
and I get
It's
it.
like talking to a
Ian,
4-year-old.
Just calm down.
Ian, it's
Ian, if I said to you, I'm
God, I
swimming,
don't know what you think moaning my name
Ian,
over
if I'm swimming in a swimming pool,
Yeah, keep
and I
moaning my
say to
name.
you, Ian, if I'm swimming in a swimming pool and I say to you I'm not swimming, that's a performative contradiction. That's all you pointed out.
That would just be a falsehood.
No, it's a performative contradiction.
It's not a performative contradiction, it's a falsehood.
You know what
Whatever
ad?
you say,
You know
big
what
guy.
ad?
You're the big bad philosopher.
Yeah,
Do
you could learn a thing
do you
or
know
two.
what ad nauseum
HD in
is?
philosophy over here. This guy's a
That is a
genius.
performative contradiction. I can affirm this.
Ian, do you know what ad nauseum is?
Like to excess?
Basically, it means to nauseation. It basically means that when the argument or whatever has reached, there's just nothing fruitful or productive coming out of it. Rather than admit defeat or save face or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, maybe you're trying to entertain your people, but the point is that you just argue and argue and argue until you get death by mod, meaning somebody kicks you out or whatever, this and that, so that you can save face. And this just seems evident by the forestalling before, and then the fact that you just keep going and going and going. It just seems like you're not making any fruitful points.
I guess I'm confused as like what the point is, right? Like I'm just answering the questions and debating with the dude.
No,
I
you're
guess
not.
this-
You're
this
not,
sounds-
you're not
Do you
answering
wish?
questions.
Do you wish
Not
to have
Showtime,
a fruitful
please.
conversation?
Go ahead, Ellis, because oh God.
Well, I don't like the Showtime, so I don't know what to say. Well, I'll say this. Look, all I know is that I don't like political officers. I don't like people who tell you what to think. I don't like people who tell you this is right, this is wrong. And Ian is one of those people, right? You see them. They're on TikTok debating about what you have to vote for, what you have to believe in, what you have to do. I'm just like morally disgusted by that kind of behavior, which is why I'm disgusted by that creature there. True philosophers, people who are really fans of this stuff, they try and encourage people to develop their own views and help them develop their own arguments, even if they know them to be false, because it's part of the journey. What guys like Ian do, and what Ian has been doing, is spouting pop pseudo-philosophy to people who don't know better, and he's engaging in anti-intellectualism, and he's not someone you should listen to about this subject. If you want to read about philosophy, if you want to learn about philosophy, you can go to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Google it, SEP. You can go to YouTube and look up universities and watch lectures online. But what you shouldn't do is listen to idiots like this, because they are undereducated, they're overconfident, and they are most often incorrect. All right? So that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say ginkgo biloba. That's a good word to say. Ginkgo biloba. And I yield.
Alrighty. Go ahead, Ian.
Damn, fuck. One sec. I gotta get my chat GPT going. Hold on.
Oh my gosh.
Gosh. Give me a world of insof. God damn it. This shit's so lame. Whatever. I guess I'll just have to do it off brain. So let me get the argument straight, Illis. So you're a fundamentally bad faith debater who's been axiomatically incapable of tracking in this conversation. I just want to make sure that I'm characterizing your argument correctly. You're a stupid dumb fuck, low IQ Neanderthal who probably can't even wipe his ass in the morning. I just want to make sure that I'm engaging in good faith here. So correct me if I'm wrong about your argument. You've never been able to track a single day in your life. You might be the dumbest person to even walk the face of the earth. You are the least talented debater anyone has ever seen. Your parents are fucking shaking, quaking, and crying by the fact that their child's a failure, and you're a loser. I just want to make sure that I've correctly characterized your position. And with that, I think I'll
Somebody turned off his mic. Lord have mercy. Okay. Ian, can you please stop cussing so much on my live? Because it is a Christian live. Like, you can say what you got to say, but like all that profanity, it's not necessary. Divine Order.
I don't know. I just got here.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's an elite reference.
Okay. Alrighty. Oh, wait. Divine Order. Shoot. Okay. I'll bring it back. Go ahead, schoolboy.
Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Love you guys. Go to church. Find God. Find the purpose in your life. Ian, you're just a rage baity little child. I'm all set.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this has been just crazy. A lot of insults being thrown, a lot of pride and whatnot. What I'm always reminded by is that we need to repent, because guess what? Paul repented, the apostles repented, the Jewish people, the more than 500 at once, they all repented. Okay, and that's what Jesus had been teaching all along. Repent because the kingdom of God is at hand. So let's join today and repent. That means to change our mind and change our heart and follow the Lord. That's good.
All right.
This is like a talent show. While we're talking about repenting, yeah, we need to get Christians like Glock, put some clothes on, cover up, stop dressing like that. Yeah, I just don't understand why like none of the Christians in here, when Ian's talking about evil, just ask him to define evil. Like, just ask him to define evil. I forgot people can't respond. I know there's a lot of angry people because I told a girl to like cover up, because it literally says that in the book of Timothy. It's coming from God. It's not me. He says to dress modestly. So why don't you repent and cover them up, you know? But yeah, like just ask him to define evil. Why should we listen to an atheist standard of what he defines as evil? We use God's eternal standard based off his nature, and they use their earth daddy or something. So yeah, Jesus is king. Put some clothes on, Glock. Amen.
All right. I'll comment on that. Go ahead, is it? don't even know if he's up. I'm gonna wrap this up. All right, y'all, please, like, order in the court something. Like, can y'all hold a conversation of subsistence without ad hominems or anything else going on?
Yeah, so I dropped out of college after 3 weeks.
W.
Yeah.
By the way, RC, I did ask him about evil before. There was a longer conversation before you got here, but yeah, I did ask him about that earlier. It just got it got WCW up in here, and everybody was just trying to lay the smack down.
If you're going to drop out of college, do it after 3 weeks. That's a really smart decision, Divine. So you made a very smart decision there.
I dropped out of college after 3 weeks. I threw everything I owned. I threw everything I own into cryptocurrency and now stream full time, which I think is really wise. It's a great solid plan for the future. People just got to get with the times, you know.
Well, just do what's right for you, man. But yeah, 3 weeks is good because if you're there for years and then you decide to drop out then yeah, that's a no-go.
Yeah, no, I just, when everybody was comparing their, qualifications and education, I feel like I had to, step in a little bit and show them that, I have the best qualifications. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, Ian, you said you got number 3 debater in the country or the county?
Yeah,
So in my specific format of debate, my partner and I finished 3rd at nationals in the country. Oh, and who was number 1? I was number 1, but who was number 2? Number 1 was like 2 gals from Berkeley, and then number 2 was a team from like UT Tyler.
You're saying 2 girls got second place?
No, they got first place 2 years in a row.
That's a corrupt DEI debate. There's no way.
No, they were incredible.
There's just no way.
Oh my god!
Like, are you misogynistic or something?
Yes.
When Ian lost to 2 women, he was not a feminist for that day. He became the biggest misogynist for a couple weeks.
I was going to drop him too. I was about to drop him. He's gone. I don't know who dropped him.
Don't worry, my bros, they do not play that. So I didn't even have to drop them.
I was about to, but yeah.
You agree that you became a misogynist for a couple of days when you lost the debate? On this platform, no. Oh, okay. No. It makes sense. It makes sense because like 90% of your fan base is like gay, so it makes sense. No, I mean my debate partner was a woman, and she became a misogynist for a day. Oh, yeah, fair enough. I relate, so it's cool. I'm like a misogynist every day, so Oof. Not based. Sarcasm.
What do you think about the Bible, Ian?
Like not true, if that's what we're looking for.
What about like the historical events?
Not substantiated.
What do you mean? What's not substantiated?
Sure. I think the easiest historical event that's not substantiated is the flood. There's just like a million things that we would expect.
Well, we don't worship. What about Jesus Christ?
There's just no evidence for that.
There's no evidence of Jesus Christ.
Oh, so that he resurrected. There's no evidence. So I think he existed. I don't think he resurrected.
Okay, but what do you mean by no evidence of his resurrection? The fact that people, like, the evidence that we have or what we're expecting to see if he actually rose from the dead. Do you know that? Which is the fact that in Galatians, for example, written by Paul, he says that he was persecuting the earliest church. And in Corinthians, for example, he says that more than 500 once also saw Jesus. So if he's persecuting the earliest church, that means there are a bunch of Jews in Jerusalem convinced Jesus is risen, that Paul was persecuting. You got the apostles at Pentecost, which is
let's go one piece of evidence at a time.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for the 500, could we, like, can I get like a list of names for the 500?
Yeah, so we don't expect that, and this is exactly why, Ian, I'm about to tell you, I'm about to educate you, right? So in Galatians, it says that Paul was persecuting the earliest church. He was persecuting the church of God. That means that there were many Jewish people in Jerusalem from the get-go who were believing that Jesus is risen from the dead. So when Paul says that more than 501 saw Jesus, we have another line of evidence to show that there were many Jews right in Jerusalem, right from the get-go, convinced that Jesus was risen. So there's no reason to really deny the fact that, so all of these hundreds of people that were convinced that Jesus was risen, we don't have any of their writings, but we know they existed.
Wait, and I'm so sorry. So is the claim that they saw a resurrected Jesus, or just that they were convinced that he had risen, because these are very different claims.
Yeah, so why in the world do you think that Jewish people would be convinced in a rising Messiah when it wasn't in their background whatsoever, out of nowhere?
So yeah, because if somebody told them stories of like fantastical events and was like very insistent on it, then it's not unreasonable for people to convert based on these stories.
Sure.
The problem is, I just don't take this as being evidence.
Why were the first people? So it's fine. We'll run with that. Why were the very first people in that equation convinced he was risen? Because they didn't have stories to go off of.
The very first people? Are you asking like where the mythology first came from?
Yeah. Why were the first people in the equation convinced he was risen?
The first people being who?
Yeah, the first people would be the apostles like Peter.
And what's the evidence that they were convinced that he was risen?
Yeah, the reason they were convinced is because in the New Testament documents, like in Mark, Peter denied knowing Jesus. They all deserted him in the Garden of Gethsemane. James thought he was crazy. But suddenly, they proclaimed that he is risen from the dead at Pentecost just a few weeks later.
And I'm so sorry, what's the evidence that Mark wrote Mark?
Yeah, so you don't have to hold to Mark writing Mark for this to be the case, right? Atheist New Testament scholars don't think Mark wrote Mark, but they still hold to what I'm telling you.
Sure. So what's the evidence that what happened, the events of Mark, are true?
Yeah, the evidence for that would be that Mark would be an early gospel. The reason is because both Mark and Matthew talk about the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, but it's not painted as a historical event. It's painted as a prophecy. So there are scholars like Gerd Ludermann, like Bart Ehrman, again, not Christian, who say that Jesus predicted the fall of the Temple of Jerusalem. So that's going to probably come pre-70 AD, very early.
Yeah, and if I hate to like cut you guys off, I just want to quickly add like a side point. Also to like sort of validate the historicity of like Matthew. Ian, there's a point in the Gospel of Matthew where Matthew records an exchange of currency between a Roman god and one of the apostles, I believe. It's an exchange between two individuals. I can't remember the individuals, but the currency that's recorded was the currency of that time. Obviously, we know that now. And obviously, if it came a lot later, we wouldn't expect people without internet access to be able to remember the currency of that time. So this is just more indication that whoever wrote these like Gospels were actually living around that time.
I mean, I could obviously I like agree that they were living like approximately at the same time. The problem is like the authorship. What was Matthew's profession?
Well, Matthew was a tax collector, right?
So wait, was Matthew one of the ones who could read and write?
Well, he would be, but even if you take the anonymous gospel authorship, right, it doesn't take away from the fact about the minimal facts. The minimal facts remain because obviously atheist New Testament scholars don't hold them to be attributed to the names that they are attributed to, but they say, obviously, based on the historical information that I'm more than willing to tell you, that he existed, he was crucified because he called himself Messiah, Son of God, and then shortly after, people were convinced that he was risen from the dead.
But what I'm interested in is not like, people can believe like a false thing happens all the time. What I'm interested in is like multiple, like a wide variety of well-substantiated eyewitness accounts, and I just don't feel like we have that.
Well, Ian, even if we, I feel like even if we could provide that, right? Let's say we did. I feel like as an atheist, you would probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, you would choose any naturalistic explanation over the resurrection. Like even if we said that like the naturalistic explanation was like a mass hallucination, which group hallucination, kind of weird, uncommon, very uncommon, doesn't happen. You would probably still choose that answer to the hypothesis when you look at the data, because am I correct in saying that you would choose any naturalistic explanation, or am I incorrect in saying that?
I think it depends on like the strength of the evidence. I think so. If I was genuinely convinced of the resurrection, then I would probably become a Christian. I don't think that there's a good naturalistic explanation. Like I've heard like the Bayesian arguments for it. I think like the philosophy might be like fine, but I think like I don't know. I think that there's like something very unintuitive about it, I suppose.
Yeah, but don't you think that could have been on purpose, right? Don't you think that what's the argument that a holy God would provide you X amount of evidence in the way that you'd want it? Like, what's...
Yeah, sure. Well, that's, I could give you a hiddenness argument for that. In the Christian view, a relationship with God is like the most good thing. It is like literally essential for you to actually like form a meaningful relationship with God and then get into like heaven and avoid going to hell. Is that correct?
A meaningful relationship?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that, the most meaningful relationship is because he provides us X amount of evidence or virtual proof.
Just that a relationship isn't possible unless I know the dude exists.
Well, I mean, you can say a relationship is possible unless you know he exists, but then there are like literally so many people who have a relationship with Christ and they believe in it, right? They have faith in it.
I think it's an interesting point. So, Ian, you said he should provide X amount of evidence. I'm curious, what kind of standard of evidence would you be demanding or be after in order to like verify the resurrection of the Christian God? I'm curious what kind of standard.
So it's like a wide standard. I think like the lower end of that spectrum is like pretty hard to place down because it's like, well, what would be like the perfect amount of evidence that would like just barely convince me that it's all correct? Like a really easy thing that God could do that would convince me of the resurrection immediately is he could pop into my room right this second, say, hey, by the way, resurrection happened. And then, bye-bye.
Go ahead.
Sure, sorry. I just want to... So,
no, my bad. I interrupted. Go ahead.
So, I mean, I think my main problem is, like, if you don't really know an exact standard of evidence for, like, what would convince you, then I don't know how you could claim you haven't had it, because it's... Well, sure, that's an example, but it's not a standard. You haven't actually set, like, any kind of standard that you would strictly be... I suppose, using to convince you. But, like, for example, if I said that...
I'll give you a standard,
If I just quickly said that, like, I don't have a specific standard of what would convince me of something, but I know that I haven't been shown the evidence. Like, I could only know or affirm that I haven't seen the evidence if I had some set standard. Also, I think that Jesus appearing in your room, I think as an atheist, I think as an ex-atheist, I would say that I think maybe you would say, I think God would know as well, obviously because he's all-knowing, that if Jesus appeared in most people's rooms, I think most people would just think they're hallucinating. I think you would opt for... Well, I think most atheists would say, okay, we have two explanations of this situation. Either A, naturalistic explanation, hallucination, because they happen, or B, a supernatural God appeared to me. I just don't... I'm not convinced that you would genuinely... on the second, that you would opt for the second one being true. Maybe I'm wrong. That's just what it said.
And okay, of course it depends on the time, right? So, like, right this second, when I say, if Jesus appeared to me right now and said, hey, I'm real, and then, like, within, like, moments, Jesus actually does appear, and it's like, hey, I'm real, the resurrection happened, or, all right, I'm going back to heaven, bye. Like, then at that point, like, there's a direct connection between what I asked for and what I got. And I can that's like the type of thing that I could verify, like, with you and everybody else here. So, but I mean, like, setting that aside, I would take unbiased eyewitness testimony from multiple known people at the time who were in positions to know, as being like.
What do you mean by in positions, like power?
No, just like a position to know, like they're like directly able to record these events. They're not like 10 steps disconnected from them.
Yeah, so virtually all scholars today, right? Virtually all historians today, even mythicists like Paula Fredrickson and even what's his name, Richard Carrier and Hurtado, they all agree that Paul, Peter, and James genuinely believed to have seen Jesus risen from the dead. At separate times, separate places, basically.
Wait, I'm sorry. So they believe who?
That Paul, Peter, and James genuinely believed to have seen Jesus risen from the dead.
And how do we know this?
Yeah, it's because in the Gospel of Mark, James and the family of Jesus thought he was crazy. This is a historical detail that historians across the board pick up as absolutely right. Because, you compare it to the other Gospels, like you compare it to Matthew, you compare it to Luke, you compare it to John, you can see theological developments, if you'd like to call them that. or changes or whatnot, framings. But yeah, it seems very clear that Jesus' family thought he was crazy in his ministry, including his brother James. And we have the sufficient evidence now to say that shortly after the crucifixion, James, among the other apostles like Peter, who also denied knowing Jesus 3 times, suddenly came to the realization that Christ is risen from the dead. And then obviously you have Paul, who Paul was persecuting the early church in Jerusalem, which we get from his own letter, that's firsthand in Galatians. So Paul, Peter, and James are agreed upon by virtually all historians as to being genuinely believing to have seen Jesus risen from the dead.
Wait, sorry. Wait, so what's? Can you go over the Peter connection one more time?
Peter denied knowing Jesus. Peter was also in the Garden of Gethsemane along with the other apostles who went into hiding after Judas betrayed him and he was arrested. So all of the apostles deserted him in the Garden of Gethsemane. All scholars that agreed Jesus existed would agree to that fact because we have a bunch of historical priors of this very thing happening. Like,
oh, sure. Okay, then these are 3 really easy things to respond to. In terms of Paul didn't know Jesus. I don't care about this.
No, Ian, you can't just get around that because Paul knew James, the brother of Christ, and the apostles. Bart Ehrman says that himself in his blog, and we have that from Galatians. Where you
but Paul didn't know Jesus.
He knew his brother. He knew the apostles that walked with him.
Okay, and what's the evidence that Paul's belief in the resurrection came from his experience with the brother?
Yeah, I mean, the evidence is based on his very own letter. He says he met up with them and spoke with them for a set amount of time. And so he would get information from them.
And what's the evidence that one of the pieces of information was the resurrection?
Yeah, because Paul, from the very get-go, like in Corinthians and even in Galatians, is saying that Jesus was crucified, that he was buried, and that he was risen. This is the First Corinthians creedal formation that it was circulating very, very early on.
You're not answering the question. What's the evidence? Oh, wait. So first of all, what's the letter that claims that Paul met up with Peter?
Yeah, it's in Galatians. It's in Galatians 1 or 2. If anybody knows exact verse, I can actually give it to you if you want.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, hold it.
Pulling out ChatGPT again.
No, it's my mechanical keyboard. I'm pulling up Google.
It's Galatians 1, chapter 1, verse 19.
Galatians 1.
Galatians 1 and 18. That's probably better if you start from Galatians 1 and 18. Chapter 1, verse 18.
Oh, yeah, I'm super not going to believe this. Insofar as this is like written, insofar as like all of this is written after he's converted and is now on his mission to try to convert people to Christianity, no, I'm going to take this as being a biased source of information. Thus, the criteria of unbiased sources of information isn't going to be met.
So his critical historians like Bart Ehrman in his very own blog that I can actually pull up for you right now.
I'm sorry. Is it unfair to ask for unbiased sources?
Yeah, it's totally fair to ask for that.
And is this source biased? Does Paul have an agenda?
Sure, everybody has an agenda.
Perfect. So then Paul isn't unbiased, so I'm not going to accept the source. Awesome.
Okay, so hold on. When we're looking at Josephus in Antiquities, who is someone who is separate in a non-interpolated verse, says that James is also the brother of Christ who was stoned. However, critical scholars across the board, like Bart Ehrman, for example, in his very own blog, like I just mentioned, says that Paul did know James, the brother of Christ, and the apostles, and he calls it the death nail to mythicism. And we don't see this just in Galatians. This is all throughout the New Testament. These are, 25 to 30 separate authors, many of which that didn't even know each other, all writing about Jesus of Nazareth, and even talking in many instances about the connection between James, the brother of Christ, and Paul. And Paul and James, the brother of Christ, that connection is seen in many, many documents, including the book of Acts written by Luke, which has been actually praised for its historical veracity by historians across the board as well. So don't know what to tell you there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what I'm looking for is like very simple. I just want like an unbiased source, like a source that doesn't have an agenda that they're trying to push, that would report like these kinds of events.
So you're just looking for a non-biblical source?
Yeah, basically. I mean, that would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when we're looking at these things, if we're looking at the first century and put a spotlight on it, all we're going to get out of the first century are the New Testament documents and a handful of historians like Tacitus, Suetonius, and Josephus. Outside of that, we're not going to really get a lot. And by the way, for Tiberius Caesar, who was the emperor of Rome at the time, he has a small little expert in Publius's writings, and in Tacitus and Suetonius' writing, a small little excerpt. Okay, less so than what we have for Jesus, even with those authors. And this guy was the emperor of Rome at the time. So I don't really know what type of information you're looking for, but the bottom line is that scholars across the board agree that Peter, Paul, and James did genuinely believe to have seen the risen Christ after he was crucified. That's what historians agree in historical journals.
But do you have any like unbiased sources for this?
Like from historians, or just like this very fact? If you're talking about the New Testament, people who live dude, if you're talking about unbiased sources, like if we're looking at a letter written to a church in Galatia where Paul is just simply noting how he met up with James, the brother of Christ, and the apostles in this letter, and by the way, this wouldn't be hugely publicized. Christianity at the time was pretty small, and these were hidden churches, underground churches. Yeah, we're not going to come out of this and conclude reasonably that Paul is making that detail up. I'm sorry to tell you.
So I guess I'd honestly be like more inclined to believe it, but there's literally a verse, like the verse immediately after says, "I assure you, I'm not lying." What?
I know. Because Paul is super smart, and he knows that there are going to be people like you that will, in his time, that will be like, oh, this is just a lie. Paul didn't meet up with the brother of Jesus. Like, obviously he's going to say that. This is just showing us that he's being sincere as possible. Bart Ehrman said,
this actually comes off as like very insincere to me. I think when people feel the need to tell you, I'm not lying, I believe them like way less.
Okay, I mean, when you're saying that Paul...
Hold on. Can I test that theory real quick? Yeah. Can I test that theory?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I have 2 kids. I am not lying, bro. I got 2 kids. Do you believe me or not?
I'm agnostic to it.
Guess what, Ian? I have 2 kids. I have 2 girls.
Cool.
Go ahead. So that's why I just wanted to see if you was gonna hold to the same standard. Go ahead, Brooke.
Wait, sir is actually on the history side. I'll give it.
I just think, in particular with this meeting, the reason why historians think this meeting actually occurred is because Paul admitting it is actually kind of detrimental to his argument. Because the whole motivation of Galatians, what he's trying to argue there, is that he got his revelation from the resurrected Jesus, not from the people that knew Jesus. But then in the same breath, he has to admit, when he went to Jerusalem, that he didn't meet none of the apostles besides Peter and James. So he kind of shoots himself in the own foot by admitting that. So I don't think that's a detail he would make up.
I mean, I still think that it's just like a biased source. I have no way of verifying the reliability or lack thereof of the source.
Well, yeah, sir, go slower on what you're saying, and like, because I agree. I heard your argument before. It's pretty good. So just go slower on that.
Well, if we're talking about him admitting to the resurrection, I can see why you'd say he has bias there. But to admit to meeting these 2 people when the argument he's trying to make is that he didn't get his information from those people, I think does hurt his argument, and I think that would be an unbiased detail. Because he doesn't want people to know that he met these people, because the whole point of the argument is that he didn't get his information from the apostles, that he was preaching for 3 years before he met him, and that he got his information from speaking to the resurrected Jesus. So in the same breath he admits, but he did meet Peter and he did meet James.
I mean, insofar as he has like an agenda to push, I'm just going to be skeptical of this. What I actually want is not sources from the Bible. What I want is things that are external to it.
The agenda he's trying to push is that you should listen to him because he talked to the resurrected Jesus. He's not trying to push the agenda that he met the apostles. Again, that hurts his argument.
Oh, well, I mean, if that's what, I feel like that leads to like absurd conclusions that you would also have to believe like the testimony of like Joseph Smith.
Well, it depends on what of Joseph Smith we're going to believe, right? If Joseph Smith admitted
that he saw God as separate from Jesus, thus defeating the Trinity.
Well, how would that be analogous to what we're talking about with Paul here?
Because Paul had a hallucination, just like Joseph Smith did.
When did I say we should believe Paul in Paul's hallucination?
Isn't that what you're saying? Like Paul wants people to.
No, I said we should believe this. I'm saying we should believe this meeting occurred with Peter and James because it hurts Paul's argument. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I think that it's like a rhetorical tactic as well to present something that doesn't defeat your argument, to attempt to make your argument look like more credible by making you look like less self-interested. It's like an ethos boost.
Is that more parsimonious than he just met with the people?
If he has an agenda, yeah, I think it is, yeah.
What's the agenda?
That he wants to convert people to Christianity.
Yeah, and by doing that, he's arguing you should listen to him because he's talked to the resurrected Jesus. That you didn't get his information from people that knew Jesus, right?
Do you want people who study rhetoric? I can literally pull up like a rhetoric book right now.
I've literally studied rhetoric.
Sections that describe like this exact tactic if you're interested.
Yeah, sure.
I study rhetoric.
Yep.
I mean,
PRK, you got to go back to the books if you study rhetoric.
I study rhetoric from pretty good. I mean, I've graduated.
I don't know what that would have to do with like rhetoric used in like first century Jewish writings. But
well, in terms of like tactics that play on people's psyche to make your argument sound more fluid, these like rhetorical tactics are prevalent across language.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems to me that like if he's making an argument that, and again, this is like universally agreed by historians. This meeting occurred. It's called the Jerusalem Council. If he's admitting to meeting Peter and James in the same breath where you're saying he didn't confer with humans on this information, they got his information from the resurrected Jesus, that he's probably just talking about a real meeting that occurred.
Clarify, sir, are you an atheist?
Yeah.
Yeah, Isser's an atheist, but he studies the history a lot.
Oh, nice.
Now, in terms of the resurrection, since Phil brought me up,
you think I'm gonna go on with this all night? I have work in the morning. They were supposed to be off an hour ago. I was just being charitable.
Oh, okay.
Oh shit! If you gotta go off like an hour, well, I appreciate everyone coming on up.
Yeah. Okay.
Or, I'm sorry. I thanked everyone for coming. I'm fucking loopy. I apologize.
No, you're good.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, but before you leave, right? Like, yeah, like what Sir said, it is universally accepted by historians that Paul met up with these people, at least James, the brother of Christ, and Peter, and so these people are going to be very, very fundamental. And like I said before, Paul, Peter, and James, they genuinely had a visceral experience with the risen Christ. Like, this is what is accepted in scholarship. Now, whether you want to say, whatever it is, like psychological phenomena or whatever, I would just investigate that. That's what
they believe they had an experience is what's accepted.
Yeah, you could just say they were mistaken at best.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but I don't agree with that, because what about all of these Jewish people? What about the rest of the apostles? Did Paul and Peter just convince all of them? I don't think so, because that scared people.